And here we are. Hello, everyone. We're back at it again.
Yep.
Should I make this? Well, we've just had a lot of banter. We had our interview slot with Morgan Day and Steve Denuser. Went really awesome. Other than the all of the technology stack falling apart as soon as we connected to the Zoom call.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, Steve said he was about to spill the entire future in the next expansion, but we'll just have to wait till next time, I guess. But, don't want to do spoilers, but there's
some
bits.
Stuff. Yeah, look forward to our video on it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm such a shill.
Man's a goddamn tease.
Yeah, anyway. Okay.
So, yeah, today, what are we here for? We are here for the...
This.
You know what, we should probably... Yeah.
Yep. Hello.
Here for the BlizzCon Q&A. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. And something I think we were talking about it earlier was... So, I went through a few of the interviews that other outlets have done. And what we noticed is, like, there's actually details of what the new content is and some of the systems. But that stuff was not in the stream, right, from yesterday. And that makes me think that something here has happened that is maybe Blizzard not setting things up perfectly, which is, I think they recorded that stuff, like, I don't know, a month ago? Like, I don't know how long ago, but it seems like in the interviews they had so much more they could talk about than what was actually on that deep dive panel. And I wonder if that's just, just an upshot of...
Yeah.
The way that it was done.
Yeah, it's a case where they probably could have filled another like 30, 45 minutes of detailed stuff if they wanted to break it down, but they just like plans were set in motion way too early for them to know what to talk about, I guess.
I think we'll definitely have to do something there that updates some of our opinions. Because we're definitely, I think we're both in the situation, we don't really feel like it was a great BlizzCon showing, but I think we now understand a lot more of why. Yeah, and what the team has said in interviews does actually inspire a little bit more confidence. Yeah, even including on release dates. I think I was sort of busy pissing myself whenever Morgan Day was finishing talking about some of the release cadence stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it seems like we're going to be getting 9.1 PTR in March.
Yep.
And it seems like, I mean, maybe did it seem to you, because you probably listen more than me? Did it seem a bit more like, maybe the raid, like they're just trying to get that world content to us or the rest of us quickly as they can?
I'm kind of mixed on that for a few things. 9.1's definitely, I don't think it's as far off as we're afraid. Definitely not. Like, it's not going to be like a surprise drop in May or maybe even June, but it's very much a case of they've got so much more actually done and concepted and thought through on the back end. It's just, it feels like there's a lot of the kind of the same things that kind of held them up with Shadowlands, which was a lot of the balance, a lot of the tuning stuff. It feels like they didn't have video and footage of things to show because the BlizzCon stuff seems to have been set up too early, and now they just can't let us play it because there's a little bit too much to finish at the end. So they seem further along than we think, but
hey, we've got Archvalder and his Warcraft hacks.
Here we go.
Hello.
Good afternoon and welcome
Here we go.
Warcraft Q&A.
Hey, it's Scott Johnson. Cool.
BlizzCon Line. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm your host, Scott Johnson. It's my second time here, and I've been podcasting for nigh on to 15 years. Been paying a lot of attention to this game. And there won't be any big surprises to the World of Warcraft development team that I'm here to ask the questions submitted by the WoW players around the world. So thank you so much for submitting your questions. There's some amazing ones in here. Can't wait to get to them. I'm sure they're used to getting questions from me by now, so we're going to go ahead and get started here with announcing who our team is. Speaking of the WoW development team, we have 6 of their leaders with us today. Executive producer John Haidt, game director Ian Hazakostas, lead producer Holly Longdale, art director Eli Cannon. We have lead narrative designer Steve Denuser and lead software engineer Brian Birmingham. Thank you all for being here. All right, let's get started. It has been a very exciting con so far, and I'd like to start with Steve. A lot of players want to know more about Sylvanas and Anduin today was shocking for many of us. In your first looks at the Chains of Domination, we learned that she's going to be a boss in the next raid, and the Sanctum of Domination is what that's called. And in the cinematic for the patch, Anima went a little nuts. Everybody wants to know more. Can you elaborate on what we saw and tell us more about what you have in store for us with these characters?
A little nuts. Wow. Well, yeah. So the story of Anduin and Sylvanas and their relationship with the Jailer, that triangle is really foundational to the story of Shadowlands. And it's something, obviously, that unfolded from the very first moments of going into the Maw, all the way through our ventures into Torghast, trying to free our allies. And it really culminated in the 9-0 time frame with that cliffhanger moment of Sylvanas holding the sword out in that pose, and Anduin challenging her, saying, the power's in your hands, what are you going to do with it? And we wanted to leave it at a cliffhanger there, but not for too long. And so it's awesome for BlizzCon Online to have that chance to now show you what happened. And so we learn what happened, right? We see that Anduin was in fact dominated, and we understand now why the Jailer was looking for someone with those qualities. They needed to be someone who could walk in the front door of Bastion and meet the requirements of that. So they needed to be that hero. They needed someone with Anduin's heart to be able to do what he did. But of course, Anduin wasn't in control of his actions there. And so we see him attack, speaking with the Jailer's voice. But in that moment, we do see, as the kind of sigil is drawing out from the Archon, we see that moment where Anduin does regain some control, and he's horrified by what he's doing. So, that tells us that Anduin's still in there. He's not gone by any means, but then we see the Jailer's influence kind of tighten the leash again and have him complete his mission, which is to bring that Covenant sigil to the Jailer, and we find out that that's a key that he needs. And as we play through Chains of Domination, we'll find out more about what that entails and how that fits into the Jailer's ultimate plan.
Sorry, there was this moment when that was happening, when you just described it, when Anduin kind of comes to himself again, looks horrified about what he's done, and then the Jailer remotely sort of amps it up again, and you see those runes on his armor kind of ignite, and he goes back into that sort of place that we just saw him in. And my question is, when he walks past Uther on his way in there, or Luther as everybody calls him,
we call him that.
Does Uther know this? Can you speak to that at all? Did Uther know what was happening there? Or is Uther just feeling bad because he knows Anduin and is having a little guilt there?
Well, there's a couple things going on there. So there's number one, there's just the look on Uther's face, which I've already seen 100 memes about, and that's awesome. But you see what his hand does. He reaches up and he touches that wound that's on his chest, the wound that was made by a weapon of the Maw. And so on some level, Uther recognized that power, and I'm sure it was not lost on him as well that there was this kingly figure walking in with long blonde hair, and that certainly stirred some memories in him as well. So all of those details, those are the things that we just pour over as we're creating these cinematics, and we have an awesome cinematics team. Taryn Gregory and his team just doing phenomenal work. I think the quality of what they've done in Shadowlands in particular has just been amazing, the little nuances. And so you see those moments of Anduin being horrified. You see when Sylvanas looks at him and kind of is in her eyes is pondering what's going on. So even though we find out that she did the thing that she did, it's clear that there's a lot more going on the surface, and that will be explored more fully throughout the course of Chains of Domination. And yeah, it does lead to that final conflict within the Sanctum of Domination, the Jailer's stronghold, where Sylvanas is the last boss of the raid. And I'm not going to give any spoilers, but what I will say is that confrontation, I can say that I think it's going to be one of the most epic moments in our rating, because it has so much story behind it. And we've spent so long now getting to know Sylvanas, seeing all these facets of her, the hero, the Ranger General, the Banshee, now this Maw-empowered form that was able to go to the top of Icecrown and throw the Frozen Throne at Bolvar. All of those facets will come into play in this encounter, and it's not going to be a simple matter of walking in there and playing our swords against Sylvanas. There's a lot of story wrapped up into that, and it's going to be a super exciting confrontation.
Yeah, maybe she'll have a moment to have that eye looked at. She hasn't had anything done to it since it got cut. I hope she's okay.
It's, you should count the number of characters in Shadowlands who are carrying one kind of scar or another, because it's a lot of them.
Well, they are their scars, as one famously said. Holly, let's move to you for a second.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, that's
What
Anima
we
and
expect.
Sylvanas. Yeah, it's going to be, that raid fight's going to be extremely epic story moment. So
Yeah. So from what I understand, they're bringing the plot lines a little bit more linear and trying to do a whole bunch of work to establish that raid pretty well before we go into it.
yes. Oh, yes.
And got that from the interview we did
Yeah.
just a few minutes ago.
Mhm.
So overall, humongous powder keg is being set up. Expect all of these characters to be just put in the blender, and we'll see what happens. I think the conclusion of this raid is probably going to be massive. Probably going to involve one of the larger post-raid cinematics that we've seen. Just thinking about character moments and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm imagining there's obviously we've seen so many parallels to Arthas and the Lich King story. So given how much of a moment everyone still remembers Tyrion's appearance, or Tyrion's involvement in that fight, I can't help but imagine they're going to try to do the exact same thing, but instead it'll be with all of the characters tied around Sylvanas.
Yes.
So is it going to be a end raid where we see a massive moment with Nathanos, Tyrande? Well, Gen's not there, but Anduin and Sylvanas all in the same fight.
Yeah, it would be a way to just have a big endpoint to so many plot lines that I think those plot lines, they need to come to a natural conclusion so we can move on to new things. I think that raids their chance. Should probably head back to the stream, see what the crack is.
Classic is now going to get Burning Crusade right along with it. Burning Crusade Classic was announced today, and we got a great opportunity, or yesterday rather, a great opportunity listening to you talk about it. Many players are asking a lot of questions about that. So for example, when moving from Classic to Burning Crusade, while keeping a copy of my character, let's say, on Classic to play separately, what's that going to look like for my gold or my items in the bank? Am I going to see any differences when I first log into that character on the two different realms I'm then on? And will they then go off into their own separate timelines, never to join again?
Great question. So I'm going to do my best to explain this simply because we weren't able to get into a lot of the details. So for you, I'm going to give you an example of how it's going to work. In my case, I'm going to use my very original character named Holly on Wormrest Accord. And I've got we'll assume I don't play a lot of alts. Let's just say I have two characters. So I've got a level 60. When I log in on Prepatch, I will log in at that moment in time. We are taking a snapshot of the character when the servers are brought down at Prepatch. That snapshot is going to be copied to Classic Era and for Burning Crusade and the current server you're on. So when you log in, I see Holly on Wormrest Accord. I'll see an option when I select Holly. Do I want to move on into Burning Crusade Classic, or do I choose to play in Classic Era? If I choose to move on into Burning Crusade Classic, I click the button, I'm off and running. So if I select my level 30, also originally named Halia character, and I decide, okay, this is my character, she's 30, I'm going to go to Classic Era and continue leveling up and enjoying my experience in Classic with my friends, I select Classic Era. So what that's going to look like for me on Wormrest Accord that's moving on into Burning Crusade Classic is that character will look inactive. Then I will go to the Battle.net app, I will install Classic Era, then I will log into Classic Era to Wormrest Accord, the same server, and then I will be able to play Halia. I will have the same gold on both. I will have the same friends list on both. Everything will be completely the same. And then I will also have the option to play Halia on both. I can pay a fee and activate my clone on Burning Crusade Classic in that case and play both. And they will both have the same gold amounts that we had in the snapshot, same friends, etc. So it should feel the same and feel seamless. We're making a lot of effort to make it as smooth and as simple as possible.
Well, it seems like a lot of care has been taken to to make that happen. And the first thing I thought of when it was announced was, all right, how are they going to handle this? They got these players that want to stay in vanilla forever, and there are some that clearly want to keep moving forward, and who knows how forward that ends up being in the future. But for right now, for Burning Crusade, it running through my head was all these ideas I could think of that you guys might try to make those people happy or to keep them happy where they are. And it sounds like this is the right way to do it. You guys feel like you've explored as much as you can, or I guess the game's not out, so maybe there's still time to explore more and get feedback, but you feel pretty good about how that's going to launch in that state?
I think we feel pretty good, but of course, beta will tell us a lot more. So that's coming around the corner pretty soon. And we'll be looking for feedback on some of the decisions we have made. And of course, where we can, we'll improve it and make it the best possible experience as we can. We do expect the majority of players are going to go into Burning Crusade Classic. So we are putting a lot of effort on both sides to make it as smooth as possible so that you can just jump in and play.
Brian, I got one for you. It's somewhat related. How will high population numbers be handled in the Burning Crusade Classic? The zones are small, and funneling everyone into a single location has been less than optimal for the release experience anyway. Exactly how do you handle all the bottlenecks, as well as heavily shared mobs and questing areas, dailies, that sort of stuff?
Well, to a certain extent, there's a desire, I think, to recapture that challenge of fighting over contested spawns. That's part of the gameplay. But at the same time, we do recognize that this is, a high population of players, and we want to make sure that the experience is enjoyable. And so we have made optimizations and improvements to make sure that the servers are stable. We were able to leverage those to make sure that Encourage was stable and make sure that we can support high populations of players and make sure that the game is playable. But that experience of there's a spawn of a mineral node or a rare herb or a netherwing egg, and I want to get that and someone else is competing with me for it. That's part of the goal of the game. And so we don't want to make any major changes to that. But to the extent that we have higher populations than we normally did, we are willing to make some targeted changes if we see that there are problem areas. We did this with Black Lotus during Classic, and so if we see that there's some particular problem area, we will take a close look and see if there's something that needs to be adjusted for the fact that we have large populations.
All right, let's jump back into Shadowlands for a second with a question from Volrin from the Deep Pockets Guild. I could use some gold. Maybe I need to go there. Will we be receiving more race/class combinations, given the customization is such a major theme in this expansion? Ian, let's go to you.
Sure. So, I think player agency and choice are certainly a major theme of the expansion, and one of the ways that's expressed itself has been customization. We've seen a wider than ever array of cosmetics and other options for players to choose among. But part of what we've also been trying to reinforce and maintain is differences, is a world that consists of different paths. And whether it's everything from class design and the return of abilities to us carving out spec niches, we want to maintain a world where there isn't exact symmetry. Things are cool, but they can be cool in different ways. Now, we've over the years gone back and re-examined race-class combinations periodically. We've certainly reached a much more permissive open place in the modern game than was the case in Classic or Burning Crusade. And for now, we think we've gone about far enough. I think there are cultural differences. There's elements to these races' histories that preclude, for example, certain races from being demon hunters or certain races from being warlocks. And those are not lines we're looking to cross. But it's something we always re-examine going forward. So I think we don't have any plans in the middle of Shadowlands to change anything there, but I would never say never about any of these.
I think some people are surprised that that whether you're wearing cloth or plate, that you're going to be able to wear your Covenant's appearances across the board. That surprised a few people. Surprised me. Does it surprise you that you guys decided to go ahead and make that a little bit homogenous per Covenant?
I think that's one of those things that is a reflection of identity that we started really to broach with heritage armor. That was one of the first sets of armor that could be worn regardless of your class, regardless of material type. And when it comes to pure aesthetic expression, we want to give players more and more options there. And if you're someone who's looking for, you're a plate-wearing warrior, but you want more of a flowing robes vibe as you're going into combat, we have gameplay reasons why we don't want to let you transmog the entire range of cloth. But for these cosmetic sets that we introduce, the more options, the better.
Well, I love that stuff. Cynthia Lee wrote in, I think this is a good one for John. And This is very interesting, and I think actually I got a lot of this on the side. People saying, "Hey, you should ask this question." I'm like, well, I'm not really going to ask anything that I can't approve first, but turns out a lot of people asked it. World of Warcraft basically got me into the gaming industry, says Cynthia. I am super interested to know, how did your workflow change during this pandemic year? John, how did that go?
Wow, that's a great question. I think maybe first I'd like to start with how it changed us and maybe the way we think of what we do. Like everyone, this all happened very suddenly for us. One day we're working towards getting the next drop for the alpha out and looking forward to getting Shadowlands complete. And then the next day we're all hustling to quickly get things packed up and move to home. And I think at first it was just sort of settling in and trying to connect with each other through Zoom or, whatever medium we had. We had really great response from our IT team. And then the team kind of reached out to each other, to find comfort and just feel connected in some way. But I think the most important thing for us is, as we saw, the horrendous events that were happening around us, and the isolation really that was happening, not only to us but to everyone, and certainly to our players, we found a purpose for ourselves. It's like, hey, we can connect people. This is what WoW started with. This happened before social media and Facebook, and we have a way to bring people together, give them something to do and to pass the time, and hopefully reconnect with friends. And I think it was really cool in a way to know that we were able to do something that was actually going to bring some peace and solace to people in a time that was pretty troubling, and still is, for many folks. And we certainly feel extremely grateful for the ability to do this. In terms of, how other things has changed in our workflow, I think that we're all considering, well, when this is over and we can all get back together, what will that look like? And there's some aspects of being at home that we enjoy. For many, the long commutes aren't there. The ability to easily connect with your family and friends is really cool. And so I think we'd like to have some aspect of that, as I'm sure a lot of folks would. The hard parts are really, I would walk down the hall and, Brian's literally like 3 doors down from me, and I could walk into the area where he and his team work and ask him a question or tell him some really cool news about what was going on, in terms of our players. And I can't do that now, or more than likely with me, because I forget, I'll ask a question, I'll go to Ian and he'll give me a very studious answer, and it's awesome. And then I'll be walking down the hall, I'm like, oh, but you know what? I should have asked him this, and I'll turn right around and I'll ask him. Now it's like, well, I just hung up the Zoom call. Do I really call him back up again? And I'm sure our whole team sort of feels that way. And especially the new team members. Holly hadn't even been with us that long before. We're like, okay, you're now working from home. Don't worry about moving.
Yeah, that must have been something else. All I know is, from a player and as a fan and somebody who pays a lot of attention to this sort of stuff, to see you guys launch a full expansion, and not only a big expansion, but one that was expected to break records given how many people were home, and an opportunity to get back into WoW, and have that happen with so little hitch. I was shocked that day. I said, well, I'll be in queues all day, or it won't be up, or authentication servers will be down. I had all kinds of bad attitudes about what was going to happen. And you guys nailed it, and I'm still not entirely sure how you pulled it off, given all the circumstances you just described. But I assume you and the team are pretty proud of how that all went down.
Amazing team, Scott. I mean, I've been in the industry a lot of years, and this is truly the most professional team I've ever worked with. I mean, they love this game. We all came to the game because we were players and we loved it, and they just plowed on. Especially everyone on the team is awesome, but I think especially in finishing things, you look at our live ops team. Not only did they successfully get Shadowlands out without a hitch, and we certainly had some hitches. I certainly goofed by predicting the date a little bit ahead of time, but I think we did the right thing. We took the time to make the game right and really tune that in game. But the live ops team had to support not only that and the shifts that were going on there, but they went ahead and got Next Ramos out for us during that time. because we didn't want to let down the classic players just because Shadowlands was running a bit behind.
Well, it's a really impressive feat. Speaking of impressive feats, we've got a lot of people wondering what happened to the Archon, and
yeah, that honestly, let's just go on. I don't think anyone.
Okay,
sure. Yeah.
we have one in particular. Artharius asked, "What happened to Archon? Is she dead, or is she just wounded?" Steve, let's throw this one to you.
Yeah, we again, when we're reviewing these cinematics and talking about all the details, we actually I talked about that with Taryn Gregory, our director. I'm like, we should put some indication in there because we want to make it clear that she survives this. And so you see her hand kind of move. It's subtle, but it's there. But yeah, the idea is she does survive this attack. And when you come in to start playing Chains of Domination when it goes live, you basically pick up the story in the aftermath of this attack. And as you can imagine, once the Covenants all hear about it, that's going to put them into action. And so that kind of drives the impetus of the story. And if you think about the implications of the jailer sending someone to acquire the sigil from the Archon, the natural question is, well, who else out there has a similar sigil for their covenant, and are they a target as well? So that's the story that's going to unfold. It's super exciting. We're really looking forward to telling that story.
Excellent. Ian, I've got one for you here that turned out to be one of the most common questions that we...
Yeah, so I thought the Archon was dead as fuck. Definitely not dead as fuck then.
Yeah, that's almost a little misrepresentative in the cutscene, because that's a killing blow. Like,
she does just get a big old Mournblade shoved through the middle of her.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I guess it does actually mean the takeaway from that, lore-wise, is that the key is something you can take from... It's something embedded in their soul that was taken by Shalamorn, as opposed to it being dead to them. So I guess that means...
I think it essentially means whenever you weaken these Eternals, as they're called, to a certain degree, it's like, yeah, you can grab the key off them, whatever that key might actually be. We don't really know what the key opens yet. Yeah, interesting. I thought the Archon was dead. I'll tell you what. Archon absolutely deserved to be slapped about a bit, because through all of the Bastion questing, it's like the sheer arrogance of the Kyrians is completely what causes all their problems.
Yes, it's like, oh, it's so awkward. They have that entire setup ready to go for the Kyrians learning their lesson, but as at the end of the Kyrian campaign, it's like, oh yeah, yes, okay, we've found out that we may have some problems to solve, but we'll talk about them.
Yeah,
and that gave me the whole vibe of, okay, we'll draft a couple documents, get them through the civil service up to the Archon, and then we'll maybe think about some changes. But it certainly seems like,
I think the Archon is now very much going to know what's up, and then she has got to change the way she goes about things. So absolutely. I think we should probably head back.
Some question from Ian.
Received. Saressa from the EU Guild Worst Company says, do you plan to address the faction imbalance soon? Alliance guilds are really struggling right now and can use some help. Also, what happened to cause this?
So this is something we talk about a tremendous amount. We know there's a very real problem, in particular at the high end of the raiding and Mythic Plus scene. This is something that has been a growing issue over the past, really, I would say, 6 to 8 years. I think as to what caused the problem, it was an imbalance in racials between the factions that was allowed to persist for a little bit too long. I think we saw over the years many top alliance guilds switch to Horde, particularly the Mists of Pandaria era, a couple more in Warlords, a couple more in Legion, driven by Orc and Troll racials that simmed better, that just yielded higher DPS outputs or had specific advantages on fights. At this point, we don't think the racials are imbalanced. In fact, in Castle Nathria, Alliance, I think not even arguably, I think had the all-around racial advantage. But the thing that keeps people on one faction or makes them tempted to move is the social dynamics. It's the feeling that if you're a raider looking to join a top-end guild, there are simply more options. And if your first choice doesn't work out, there's others to explore and fall back on. If you're looking to run high-end Mythic Plus dungeons, there are more people looking to do that content there. And that's a challenging problem to solve because really, we can't undo this movement that's happened over time. And it would take something tremendous to make people who had switched from Alliance to Horde want to suddenly switch back. We'd have to like massively buff Alliance racials or something to the point where they were so overpowered that it really felt like just bad. It just felt like it was game breaking, and we were really telling people that they should play the other faction. We've looked at where we can offer bonuses for the underrepresented faction where possible, but fundamentally, this is a social issue that's likely to need a social solution. We don't have anything super short term that we can do about this, but it is a top priority for us. Personally, in the past, on stage at BlizzCon, Alliance and Horde those are pillars of the Warcraft franchise. Those are pillars of what makes Warcraft Warcraft, and that's not something that we can just brush away. But we have begun to ask ourselves where the edges of that tension lie. We have something like mercenary mode in Battlegrounds that allow players to effectively, disguise themselves as a member of the opposite faction and play there to solve what were major Battleground queue imbalances back in the day. It's essential to us that identity and faction matter in Warcraft, and that years from now, no matter what we do, when we're all together in Anaheim at BlizzCon, and someone, whether it's the successor of Chris Metzen, whether it's John, whoever, is up on stage rallying, where's the Horde at for the Alliance, that there are roars coming from the crowd for each faction. If we lose hold of that, we will have lost hold of something precious. And so that's the thing that we need to preserve at all costs, but not the cost of people's enjoyment and feeling at home and feeling like they can form and maintain friendships and WoW and do the content they want to do. So that's what we're trying to navigate. We don't have any specific answer to announce right now, but that's the problem that faces us and how we're thinking about it.
Do you ever see...
Scott's got to follow up, I think.
It's a bit of a follow-up for me, but have you ever seen a swing in either direction, either faction, population direction, due to story elements? Has an expansion come out like, I don't know, Warlords, and everybody suddenly went, ooh, that's very Horde focused, I'm going to be Horde this time and level a Horde tune or whatever? Does that have any impact on this problem of faction imbalance?
A little bit, though. I think, to be clear, across the game as a whole, faction balance is actually solid. Right? Alliance and Horde are relatively even if you're looking at the entire player base. It's when you start to look specifically at Mythic raiding guilds, specifically at the number of groups that are doing Mythic plus a certain level, or above a certain level, that imbalances increasingly emerge, but those are also key socially driven activities. We certainly have seen, though, for example, in Battle for Azeroth, more people made cross-faction alts than ever before, because they wanted to see both sides of the story. And there were compelling differences to the war campaigns on each faction. But at the end of the day, that's not going to make you leave the group of friends that you've played with for a long time or your longtime guild. There's a bond there, and that bond is essential to Warcraft, to World of Warcraft.
Yeah, it's like not to cut him off massively, but I think that point's essentially done. Ultimately, I think there's no way to fix this problem with the faction balance. Like, it is entirely, as Ian said, those Mythic communities were seeded at a certain time because of all of those things that he said. But once the communities are established there, I mean, do you just find a way to tear them down just to fix that problem at the very high end? No, like, you can't really do that because it's going to be so damn disruptive. So it's really strange, because I think most people who just want to play the game for the Warcraft fantasy, they're just going to choose whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then there is just that echelon of raiders who are going to follow where the community is. The community's on Horde, and if we think about the social incentives, this is a thing called a network effect. So if you look at something like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, those all increase in utility the more their user count grows. It's like that with the raiding community, in general, right? There is more overall utility and less friction if the entire raid community decides to be on one faction. Because then if you've got the same economy in Auction House, you can switch guilds easily, all that stuff. I don't think there's much more to say, so we should probably...
It's fundamentally the same as servers. Go to Draenor Horde or Time Horde. That's it.
Yeah.
Solve both problems at once.
Gotcha. Well, Brian, I've got one for you here. This is from several WoW Classic players, and they ask this. After I play Burning Crusade, when I decide to play my main character additionally on a Classic Era realm at 60, will you have my name reserved for me there, or is there a chance I'll have to rename my character?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think kind of building on what Holly said, it really is like a snapshot taken at the time that we launched the patch. And so at that point, you do have your name in both places. Of course, part of the reason that we want to make people make a choice here and encourage them to choose the place that they want to go is so that we don't have people parking on those names forever. So at some point, we might decide to relax that and let those names be unreserved. But if you decide on launch day that you're going to pay for the clone and you want to have that clone in both eras, you'll have your name in both places. One of the things that we are also concerned about, though, is what that looks like in Classic Era, as we expect most players to go to Burning Crusade, and we'll probably have to do something to resolve that. Our current plan is that you'll be able to keep your name, but probably have something similar to our Connected Realms that lets you have the realm name on the end so that we can resolve any conflicts if we have to do any mergers like that.
Interesting. So on some realms, there seems to be a mass exodus to higher population realms, and Nimbly from the Excessive Guild points out, are there any plans to connect more of them? So Ian, this is back to you. What happened last year with realm connections, and will that help any of what you talked about earlier?
Yeah, so I guess speaking of past BlizzCons, I think, a couple of, the last time we were all together for a BlizzCon, I talked about Connected Realms and answered a question there. And it was a massive undertaking, again, on the part of our heralded server and live operations team that John was talking about earlier, to really do just a survey of all of the realms across the world, their population trends, their faction balance, and come up with pairings and a series of connections that they worked through. And this is a manual process because we are effectively copying an entire realm's database of characters over to another realm. We have to deal with auction houses, mail, banks, all the rest. And so it's not something where we just flip a switch and make it happen. This is painstaking work. And we were able to address the large majority of the lowest population realms that over the years, we've seen people move to realms to be with their friends. Larger realms tend to be more attractive than smaller ones, and that's an ongoing process. We paused that process when Shadowlands launched for a couple of reasons. First off, launching Shadowlands and having a smooth Shadowlands launch had to be this group's #1 priority. Second, Shadowlands actually had huge effects on server populations. One of the things that made us gun-shy about doing realm connections in the past was that last time we did them was actually right before Warlords of Draenor. We connected a bunch of realms, saw people come back for Warlords, and suddenly these realms that had just been connected now had massive queues and instability to deal with. So we wanted to make sure that we saw how populations were going to settle down, and it's a tool that we continue to have that we will employ when realms feel like their population levels are too low to sustain healthy economies, healthy groups of guilds. But we also want to continue to look at what changes we can make to the game itself to make playing on those types of servers more attractive and just a better place to be. Because even if, having connections happen is disruptive to those communities and to those realms, even if it's better than feeling like you're isolated. But things like cross-server gameplay over the years have, of course, significantly reduced the burden or the downsides of being on another realm, of being on a smaller realm. But we start to look at things like auction house economy and the rest, and there maybe is more that we could do there.
Well, and I know the answer to this already, and it's eternal to the Q&A of BlizzCon every year, I swear, but you're never going to let Horde and Alliance raid or Mythic Dungeon together, are you? That's just not going to happen. Like, that's never going to be a way to help this or the population issues we talked about before.
Come on, Scott.
Like, we're never getting that.
I honestly would not say never. I think that's kind of what I was getting at with my answer earlier. There are a ton of reasons why it's essential to retain faction identity. But, for the sake of Rated Arena from day one, Alliance could fight Alliance and Horde could fight Horde, right? When Burning Crusade launches, when Burning Crusade Classic comes out later this year, that will be a thing and that will be a competitive activity. And that was one of those areas where the gameplay and the need for matchmaking was the top priority and had to be. And so in an ideal world, all of these priorities would coexist. But at the end of the day, an MMO like World of Warcraft is about being able to play with your friends, being able to play where you want to be. And arguably, there's greater strength in the faction identity if you feel like you can truly choose the faction that you identify with, that you feel like most a part of, and not have to sacrifice that because, you need to be with your group or you want to join a higher rated guild. I mean, I have coworkers who are lifelong Alliance players who now play Horde, who really wish they could be Alliance, and they're doing it for guild reasons. And I know there are tens of thousands, maybe more, in that exact same boat around the world. We'd love to do something for them.
There's plenty in our guild that are in that boat. And
so, I think we just go to our full cam.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. I think Ian basically just insinuated there's a chance they may make a change there in the future. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
And like the narrative framing, I mean, you just make it so that we have, maybe this happens in game, maybe it's a short story, but I mean, remember the Theramore diplomatic meeting that, you know, all the bullshit happened, and that was a big plot point in like Wolfheart, the novel, like around that era.
Yeah.
So we've had those treaties before.
Yeah.
We could just have a memorandum of cooperation or whatever be signed between the factions. That could be a neat little bit of story. And once that is done, it could just be like mercenary mode for M+ and raiding. Keep your war mode and all of that stuff. Yeah. But as long as there's that, you know, canonical thing, narrative framing, lamp shading that lets us do that.
Yeah.
I'm in 100% support. Like, don't merge the factions, but something like that would be great.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is important is that a lot of the reason that Mythic rating's so stacked for Horde and stuff like that is because those people care less about the fantasy and more about the gameplay.
Exactly.
So for people who actually want to do that, the fantasy is less important for that end. But for those who actually do, the mercenary mode does the job perfectly. The only problem I can think of there is there'll probably be some significant technical barriers to that. Because you know how you can't find a player in the same realm, and obviously if you're in a guild, you group up before you go into the raid. There's certainly some technical barriers, but it's very clear there that that's essentially where they seem to lie on it as well. Because obviously this feels like it goes against what he just said about the other stuff, but it actually doesn't.
Ian would not have mentioned mercenary mode lightly, I think.
Yeah, not a chance.
Probably hop back to it, but interesting stuff, and I think bodes well for the future.
Sure.
I wish them well to stay with us. Let's stay with you for a second, and let's get into some Anima. Reminar from the Ministry of Pain Guild asked this important question. Will our amount of Anima be increased later? Is it possible for each of the Covenant Sanctums upgrades to be unlocked account-wide? There's a lot of collectibles across all Covenants, and to get them all would be a gargantuan feat at this point.
Just 30 weeks of raiding worth of Anima before your next upgrade.
Yeah, please, thank you.
We have been tuning the Anima economy since Shadowlands released. We recently hotfixed Anima drops from raids and dungeons. We will be looking to add some new sources of Anima going ahead in Chains of Domination as there's new world content and as the story advances to make that make sense. And we're overall looking at the costs. That said, the cosmetics themselves are generally account-wide, as cosmetics tend to be. And the Anima system itself is a progression that is designed to span the bulk of Shadowlands. We have some new rewards and some new cosmetics to earn and goals to chase coming in Chains of Domination, but it's not like you're going to feel like you're falling farther and farther behind over the course of the expansion. We want people to feel like they can close in on those goals and reach a point where they have everything they want from the Venthyr Covenant, from the Curian Covenant, and can turn their attention to alts. If it feels like we were hearing feedback and we're looking at our data, if that progression isn't happening at a rate that feels satisfying, we absolutely will make adjustments.
All right, we're going to throw a question.
I think one of the major ways they screwed that up, and this is entirely from my anecdote, where I absolutely hate the fact that I've got more redeemed souls than I could possibly use. Because I've been getting 5, 10, 15, getting 20 this week. So I've got more than I possibly need, but I'm still 40,000 Anima, 30,000 Anima off finishing my stuff. So I think that might actually be a very simple problem of they tuned these numbers wrong and didn't set the expectations up.
Yes, because of the rate of souls that I get, I would expect that with Anima, it would be keeping pace. And it feels like the souls. It's easier to be kept up in that. We got a super chat from Nino, who says you can still have faction identity and friction and still have cross-faction play. We, the champion, might as well be an agent of both factions at this point. Basically correct, and I think that just means it's something like a mercenary mode for PvE content. would slot into the game pretty smoothly.
Out here from Becest, who asked a question about Sire Denathrius. As we know, he is an Eternal One, and Sire Denathrius is imprisoned by us after Castle Nathria. What will he do? Will we see him again, or is he forever trapped in that sword of his?
So this is a kind of fun story because it shows how our best laid plans can kind of adapt based on how the game develops. So I'll give you an example of, like, during Battle for Azeroth, we had intended for this character called Bwansamdi to be one of the Loa to make kind of he was going to be there, but it was no big deal. There's a bunch of Loa in there. But once we heard the great Alex Desire give his performance as Bwansamdi, we were like, oh man, this character's awesome. We need more of this character. And so then we were like, yeah, we could do this with him. We could do this with him. And of course we carried him into Shadowlands, and he's got this whole dungeon, the other side, that tells more of his story because we love him so much. And so, as we're planning our heroes and our villains for Shadowlands, we're like, yeah, Sire Denathrius, he'll be this boss in the Castle Nathria raid, and you'll kill him, and cool, blah, blah, blah. And then we heard the actor Ray Chase give this performance, and from the very beginning, when we first heard his performance in the Revendreth animatic, we were just like, well, this guy's awesome. We love Sire Denathrius. And I think probably at some point along the way, as we're getting more VOs coming in, we're having sessions and we're loving them, I probably went to Morgan Day, one of our lead designers who oversees encounters. I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to leave Sire Denathrius alive at the end of this because he's just too good. And
okay, that I think is pretty damn incredible.
Yeah, that's cool.
Remornia
of course.
is awesome. Will they give her a body like they did for Edie in Mass Effect, I wonder?
Or
Zalatath.
Or Zalatath,
yeah. But memes aside, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
The stuff with Sire Denathrius really does tie into the Dreadlords, right? All this lore we've went, the ancient stuff where they may have actually been involved in turning Sargeras to become a madman and do the whole Burning Legion thing.
Yeah.
Like, Denathrius might actually be connected to that. It seems very likely that could be the case based on some of those ancient documents. So,
sure that we will find some other route for him to take in the future. And so,
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that. But also, I love that Bwansamdi got similar treatment. That was such a treat to run into him in this expansion and go through that bit that I went through during the leveling process. I just thought, well, it's good to see him again. I hope he never goes anywhere. So, all right, good news.
Yeah,
Sire Denathrius probably not gone for good.
Yeah, that's one of the things that shows. Again, we watch fan feedback too to see what the community is responding to, who these characters are that they really gravitate to, and like the memes for Sire Denathrius, of course, are profound and many. So I won't give any spoilers, but he is in that sword. And there may just be allies of his that would be interested in liberating that sword from the Naru's grasp. But we'll just have to see what happens.
Have to wait.
Okay, the future of Sire Denathrius, what's going to go on with the big man? And who's his allies that are going to rescue him? Is it going to be Dreadlords? Are there Dreadlords that are alive in a way where they, Shadowland's dead, but in some way where they could break him out?
Yeah, so one thing is the Dreadlords are very much allied with whoever they please to serve their own ends.
Yeah.
In our video and how the way it seemed framed was that if Denathrius is the sire of the Dreadlords or anything to that extent, and they've been working for the Jailer, then maybe the main host of the Dreadlords are working for the Jailer.
Yeah.
But maybe there's ones that are loyal to Denathrius.
Yeah.
So we could have the proto-Dreadlords show up and rescue him.
Oh, Joseph L. just came in, says Lothraxian. That's something. Put a pin in that. I think we'll get to that very shortly.
Yep.
Because, okay, so. Oh, Steve, you teasy boy. Oh my God. Okay, right. Lothraxian, he is a Dreadlord. He is also thick with the Naru and the Army of the Light and Turalian. Can't wait till they see the interview we just did with Steve.
Oh yeah, that'll be good.
That'll be really big. You'll enjoy it. So yeah, we have got a light-related Dreadlord who could probably go to the Naru, who is currently in Revendreth, I guess, pure pummeling Denathrius's soul for repentance. And that could break him out. So then what is the big man going to do? Is Denathrius going to be this, like, different character who's extended into the lore? And who actually gets to have maybe some sort of role of significance? Because Denathrius is going to know more about all of the cosmic stuff
of course.
than any of us.
Yeah. Oh, it's super interesting because remember that Lothraxion was called the traitor in their midst for the light?
Yeah.
So...
Oh, good.
So Lothraxion seems to be to them, or to the Dreadlord main host, is one of them, and is allied with the light. So there is a decent chance that if Lothraxion is ultimately loyal to Denny, then the Naru coming in, letting Nathrius out, he's different. There's so many things they could do with that to turn the Dreadlords into this, like, different force entirely.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a narrative potential.
Yeah, that's cool.
So massive potential, and maybe Ramonia body pillow. So let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Well, all right, we've got a great question here from Ultravarius from the Guardians of Fate Guild. This is for Eli. When will we see more heritage armor? There are a few races who are still missing theirs. So what's the deal with that?
Yeah, the heritage armors are awesome. As each one of them was, released into the game, I think we got more and more excited for not only the response, but just how much they enhanced the feel of the races in the game, and really did grasp the fantasy that we had set forward for those races over the years. So certainly we're working on the additional missing ones, and they will be released over time in near future content updates, and some others that are a little bit further off. But yeah, they're definitely coming. We're really excited to share them with you.
That's great. They won't be missing forever there, Ultravarius, however you say your name. Hey, we got one here for John again. This is from Prickle Pants from the Zul'jin realm. Fantastic name. John, he asks you this, John. Do you have any plans to bring the auction house back to the mobile app?
Well, not as you know it, per se. The auction house, unfortunately, on the mobile and website had kind of turned into a place where a lot of automation had really taken control. And so when we revamped the mobile app, we used it as an opportunity to let's get rid of the mobile auction house. Let's revamp the auction house in the game itself to make it, more fun, more accessible. It's really about players being able to trade with each other, to make crafted things for each other, and not necessarily for the accumulation of gold by automated systems. That being said, we recognize that there was a convenience factor for a lot of our players. I myself, back in the days when we used to drive to work or whatever, if I knew in my commute I had to be, on a tight timeline to get to my raid, it was kind of convenient to be able to, buy up, whatever potions or food that I needed, and then get in the car and head home and be ready to go. So I think the things that are important for people to have and to be able to trade, we're going to consider putting that in some form so that they'll be able to do that. But you won't see a wholesale return of all things in the auction house to the mobile side.
Well, and as you mentioned, the auction house in-game has gone through a bit of a revamp itself. Do you feel like a lot of that is sufficient enough to sort of, I don't know, fill whatever hole that the mobile app won't?
Well, I mean, honestly, towards the end of the mobile app, there was very few people actually using it as intended. As I said, I think that we're seeing a lot more people participating in the app in the game, or excuse me, in the auction house in the game. And again, we want people to be in the game and interacting with each other. That's super important.
I may have been one of the few people who actually used the mobile app and had the additional subscription. My morning routine was I would get up and I would check the market for meta gems. This is like during Kata, I believe, when that was going on. Or was it late Wrath? But whatever it was, I pretty much used the hell out of that, and I might have been the only person who did.
At least the only one who didn't automate it.
Yeah, probably.
But we don't want to take away the convenience of having them get access to things that they're going to need when they're about to get into the game. And selfishly, like I said, I'm one of those commuters that needs to be able to get my things ready for the raid. So we recognize that and we want to provide that.
Sounds great. Huntmaster Averi from the Forest Riders realm wrote in, and Eli, this is back to you. Will there be more new character customization options added in Shadowlands?
We're not going to add more character customizations to Shadowlands. Let me explain that. So the breadth of character customizations that we did add, we felt like was pretty good. And, we tried to add things for most every race. There are a few we didn't get as many customization options in for. And those are the kind of things that we'll be looking forward in the future, to what can we do for the races we maybe didn't do as much for, what would be the right choices there. We try to be really thoughtful about this type of thing. And these types of features tend to be fairly big projects. We want to make sure that we put the time in, that we're very thoughtful about it, and that we release new customizations when it's going to be really good for the game, really good for the players, and it's still going to, happen in parallel with getting new content out too. Like that's always our primary goal, is making sure that you have new content to play, and we'll do these other things to enhance the game along the way, wherever they make sense, and when we have a really good plan for it.
Yeah, so I think what he's really saying there is that so. If you're a Lightforged Draenei, it's a little disappointing because the breadth of customization options is not there. And frankly, it seems like they need to redo some of the Highborn. Oh, they ain't in. Need to redo some of the
Nightborn?
The Nightborn.
Yes, all of
Bit
them
rough.
probably.
Bit rough. Now, that said, what he's basically saying is, or I think what he's insinuating is, it's all made by the same group of people, I'd imagine, whether it's class armor sets, whether it's if Battle of Azeroth gave us class sets for every single tier, maybe we would not have had the customization options that we just got in Shadowlands. Which ultimately, to me, it seems like this is one of the largest video game businesses that exists. I wish it was a situation where, and I'm not saying this is what is the case, but it seems like it. It seems like it's a bandwidth problem. Like they are
for sure.
Just like they're not able to throw enough staff on these things to get a new expansion and class sets for every tier and new customization options. Could be tools and workflow, maybe?
If you think about how old WoW is tech-wise and the fact that it was built on a custom version of Warcraft 3. So, the idea that they can't get a lot of new customizations out all the time, and how big they lauded the new customizations, because they were big and they were great selling point for Shadowlands, but they were in any other game or in any other modern engine, that stuff is you just do it. But they had to spend so many technical resources to get hair to look properly, to get the face mesh change.
It's in so many other games, it's I don't know if it's a blend shape or whatever, but and I think a lot of people know what these sliders are for. But a lot of the time, you can just, with the way that characters are actually constructed from a technical perspective, you can a bit more easily, scale things up, scale them down, change them about a bit more easily. Whereas when you look at the WoW stuff, it very much looks like it's a lot of very fixed assets that they're putting on.
And they get away with it too, because I almost race changed my Lightforged back to a regular Draenei just for the side build. But
so that is the state of customization. I think they just need more people to do it.
I don't know if you guys got a lot of this feedback or not, but I can tell you that the thing I had the most fun with the pre-patch was going and getting those customizations done to myself, heading into the barber and going, are you kidding me? I can now have a scar that runs from my eye down to my lip, and half my tusk is broken, and whatever, that stuff turned out to be really great. Did you overall get really good feedback about that? Do you feel like, giving those extra options was worth it to the players?
Oh, definitely. And I remember even, when we announced that this was happening, and I might have even been in a Q&A actually, the outcry and the sort of support for it was huge then. We've seen, tremendous support and tremendous outcry from the community, just how happy everybody is seeing this. And of course, as players of the game, we're super excited about it too. And the first thing I did on every one of my characters was go in and start customizing them, as well as get into the, character create screen and just look at all the options, hit the random button over and over and over again to just, really get a sense for what's in there. So I think it's a really exciting feature, and certainly something we want to invest in a big way going forward when it makes sense.
Yeah, those are fantastic. Radium from the guild Inertia has a question for Ian. What are the actual requirements for flying in Shadowlands? Where can we fly? And can we fly from one area to another? For example, from Argynville to Oribos. Follow-up. You know what? I'll save the follow-up. Tell me how that's going to work.
Okay.
When flying is indeed available to everybody.
It's short and sweet. Shadowlands Pathfinder, which is coming in Chains of Domination, will not require any reputations. This is different from Pathfinder achievements in past expansions. It just requires completing your full campaign, the Covenant campaign, and the new chapters that are being added in Chains of Domination. Once you've done that, you have mastered the outdoor world of the Shadowlands, restored much of the flow of Anima, and you can earn the ability to fly within the Shadowlands. Now, you cannot fly directly from zone to zone. I can give you the technical reason for this, but it actually also matches the in-world reason, which is these are not zones that are just next to each other, right? When you go through that portal in Oribos and you're streaking, from one area to another, and you have this energy rushing past you, you're actually traveling vast distances. Even if we said, you know what, we don't care that it looks janky, we're going to let you fly, you'd actually probably have to auto-fly for something like 30 or 40 minutes to get from one zone to the other. You probably don't want that. Use the fly paths, but then once you're in the zones, you can traverse them completely freely.
That's really interesting. I didn't realize that there was that much. I think maybe what throws people off is the map. They bring up the map and they just sort of, in traditional WoW fashion, see that everything's sort of spaced around like it would be a normal map or whatever. But that's a really interesting way to look at it. So here's the follow-up. What about their alts? So after you unlock flying, can their alt fly at 50, or is there still a requirement to level fully up, go through those, go through all the rigmarole to get it, or can they just do it?
Yep. Pathfinder is an account-wide achievement, and so when you can fly in the Shadowlands, you, the player, have earned the right to fly in the Shadowlands, just as prior Pathfinder achievements have worked.
That is fantastic news. My paladin thanks you. Let's move over to Brian. We got a question from others from the Quiddy Viddy Guild, who says, in the Burning Crusade Classic, will there be the possibility of class tuning? Says that would make it notably different than in 2007.
That's a great question, and in general the answer is broadly no. We want to kind of keep the authentic behavior that was in the final patch of Burning Crusade the same way we did with Classic. We believe that's the most tuned and correct version of Classic that had the most time, or excuse me, of Classic Burning Crusade, that had the most time for the designers to get things balanced right. And so that's what we're going to ship with at launch and keep it throughout. That said, I do have a slight caveat for anybody who hasn't heard it in any of our other interviews. We do want to try to adjust things like faction imbalance. We know that when they were adding Alliance, Alliance Shaman and Horde Paladins, the intent was to try to make the factions a level playing field, like give both classes, all the classes to both factions, and we want to make sure that kind of design intent is honored. And so we realize that when we look back with the benefit of our years of experience now, we can see that Seal of Blood is actually significantly better than Seal of Vengeance, and we don't want that to be a reason for people to suddenly flock off to the Horde. Kind of like alluding to Ian's answer earlier, this is the same kind of issue that we have here. And so what we want to do is give the Alliance a Seal of the Martyr at level 70. So they'll unlock Seal of Vengeance at level 64 and Seal of the Martyr at level 70, and the Horde will unlock Seal of Blood at level 64 and Seal of Vengeance at level 70. But beyond that, we aren't doing anything major.
Okay, sounds good. Classic players, a lot of people want to know about that. Here's one for Ian again from Whoopi from the Is Kindred Guild. It says this question: is there work currently being done on new Torghast Anima powers for later patches, specifically spec-specific powers, and what does that look like, and when might we see them?
All throughout Shadowlands. We have tuning ongoing to a lot of the spec-specific powers that players have seen on the patch 905 public test realm that's live right now. And as we continue to expand Torghast going forward into Chains of Domination, there will be all new powers, because we know powers are one of the star pieces of Torghast. It's a chance to break the rules, it's a chance to be overpowered, and to have your character feel and play like it does and can nowhere else in the game. And so that's something we're excited to keep building on. And we'll do it as it makes sense. We're looking a lot at both stats and feedback from players to see which specs may need more build diversity and more just really like punchy, memorable moments coming out of their Torghast runs.
So tiny little bit of indulgence here. I had a theory a while back on one of my shows that one cool feature of Torghast could be go to Torghast, do your thing. You've got all these Anima fixes that are now on you toward the end of your run. You finish, you beat the final boss, and you exit. How cool would it be if you could run around the Maw for, let's say, 8 minutes? Not very long, just a little counter up in there like a buff, where you retain all your Anima powers in the Maw for that brief amount of time. So you've got your, I don't know, your all the extra stuff that happens to every character in every class. Is that anything you guys would ever consider? Has that ever come across your minds or been on a whiteboard anywhere?
I can see Rextroy over there just drooling right now. Like, don't let that guy get his hold of any of this, or all of our raid bosses will fall over in 2 seconds. There are a lot of rules that we break in actually how we build those powers for Torghast that make it challenging to let them work in the outdoor world. Also, war mode players might have a thing or two to say about that, but I think let's keep the overpoweredness in Torghast. And yeah, there are also profound fantasy reasons why the condensed Anima powers fade the moment you exit the domain of the jailer that I'm sure Steve could elaborate on at great length. But we also want to leave time for other people to ask their questions.
That's true. All right, Carol. In fact, Steve, we're going to throw you this one. Carol from the Blade Fist realm had this question. What is the difference between the passage of time in Shadowlands and on Azeroth? Salinar, the Horseman, and Death Knight Order Hall campaign are in that, says he was in the Vale between Azeroth and Shadowlands since we met him, and it felt like mere days for him between Wrath of the Lich King and Legion.
Yeah, there's a number of different characters you meet and interact with through the course of Shadowlands, for whom time doesn't seem to have very much meaning. And in fact, like the Rune Carver, you go talk to the Rune Carver, when you meet him, he has a line that time is not a construct of death. And that's true. When you think about it, what is time a construct of? It's a construct of order. And we on Azeroth, when we're there, we understand the passage of time, much like we do in the real world, because of the influence of the Titans and beings of order. But when you're in those cosmic realms that are far away from the realms of order, time loses its meaning. And so it's not so much that there's it's X number of days versus Y number over here. It's just that the Shadowlands are about eternities and about just kind of losing yourself in those threads of fate. And so it's just that time doesn't really mean anything there. And so you can have it perceived differently by different characters that could be in the same circumstance, but it's just the effect of what they're going through that really determines how they perceive it.
I think, it's right, like enjoying, physics and stuff like that, IRL. It is interesting as how this applies to World of Warcraft. Yeah, I think about a movie like Arrival, and I don't want to, be dropping hot spoilers on you, but a part of that is like the aliens' language is the way that it is because of the way that they perceive time. So I think as this stuff pertains to like World of Warcraft and time, it's always complicated by how Warlords of Draenor existed, but I think Warlords of Draenor has no connection to any of the way that Steve talked about time, because Warlords of Draenor is basically just nipping a bud off the timeline and then collapsing it back in. Something along those lines. So with that, learning that time is a construct of order, it's tricky, because like we think about space-time, we think about general relativity as the the frameworks through which we try to understand these things. So, yes, who knows? Maybe Matthew McConaughey and co. go up and do their Interstellar, but it's the Warcraft cosmos, and maybe it does not work the way that you would expect. So that is interesting.
I'm trying to think of how they can actually use this, because obviously when we first knew we were going to the Shadowlands and we knew about Salazar's line, we're like, okay, this is the perfect time for them to do this big time skip. Where they can go and we can come back and they can change the whole world. But I'm actually thinking, if it's the way he's talking about how it's perceived differently by characters based on their events, I think this will be used for localized time skips. This will be used, so as an example, the one I'm thinking of is Tyrande. Tyrande's clearly having some problems. But she's effectively immortal, as in enough, even though they lost it, but let's not talk about that. It's like they can box her off and go, all right, we'll throw her into this pit, and then 6 weeks later she'll come out, but all hyperbolic time chamber, she'll have sat with like the Night Warrior power for 10,000 years in that pit, and come out being like a complete version who's accepted it, or something like that with other characters who seriously need time to pass.
I think that localized thing, I mean, it does line up with what we experience in the Maw intro, right? We meet Jaina there, and for Jaina, she had experienced a humongous amount of time, it seemed. But, of course, we just went in. Now, being, humans who exist in the actual universe, what we then think is, we're thinking about general relativity. We're thinking, okay, in the same way, if I am parked up beside a black hole, if I am in here, my clock moves by 1 hour, but back in Azeroth, years pass. It's actually not like that. They've made it so that the way the time works is such that for Jaina's experience and what the jailer puts her through in the Shadowlands, which is basically a place where time doesn't humongously matter and is very loose, then she can experience that in a localized fashion. So, to your point, what the hell has Tyrande been doing? Like, are we going to see her just having went through an absolutely harrowing, crazy experience as she's been lost in Torghast, and who knows how much time's passed for her?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the immediate option there is for torture, as did with Jaina. It's like, if you want to give someone a bad time, they'll have a bad time for 20,000 years in an instant. That's like that Black Mirror episode that continually haunts me.
That is a fucking... that's a terrifying Black Mirror episode. It's so good.
Yeah, but...
Season 1 or 2, I think.
Season 1, I think. But there's other ways they can... I think there's other ways they could possibly do it to have interesting characters that are flitting about.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously we go for what if the experience is longer than ours? But then there's also a lot of fun they could have with characters whose experience is shorter than ours.
Yeah.
Kind of how Chromie speaks to us like, oh yeah, when is this our first meeting, or have I met you 1,000 times? Whatever, it gets complicated. So
we need more Chromie content.
Yeah, I can see that with like fun little characters for side content. But...
Yeah. As always, Steve Zanuzer gives us a lot of things to talk about. So good man, Steve, and let's see what else he's got to say.
Gotcha. Ian, back to you on this one. We've got a question about this is from Harrison, by the way. So would you guys ever consider bringing back 10-man content? I'll add my name to this list as someone who loved their 10-man content, either as a different difficulty for raids or as an entirely different instance for smaller groups to tackle. Is that ever going to happen?
I think when it comes to raid content, effectively all of it is 10-player content now. I know, some people specifically want mythic difficulty, but it feels like the thrust of this question, actually the spirit of it, is about that different thing that you can do with a smaller group of friends. And I would say in World of Warcraft today, it's our 5-player mega dungeons that fill that role. Just as in Burning Crusade, when raiding was 25 players as an activity, the idea of a 10-player raid like Karazhan or Zulaman was a novel experience to let you have a more intimate, shared, romp through a dungeon, through a raid adventure with a smaller group of your friends. That's what mega dungeons try to do. They try to give an experience that is raid-like, that you can just take with a smaller group of friends that you couldn't raid with normally. It's an experience that can span hours. You have bosses that have progression and a setting that is just epic. As cool as our dungeons are, places like Karazhan or Operation Mechagon or the upcoming Broker Dungeon just blow them away. And so I think that is where the spirit of 10-player content lives on today.
I actually think Ian's bang on there, and the reason why I decided to pause and do a bit of comment on this, I actually wanted to call up Destiny 2's launch raid. I've only done a few bosses in Destiny 2. Me and Matt did that one together, and it's the different types of content are enabled when you have a smaller, more intimate experience, and for me, it is the dogs. There is this boss in D2 where you're dealing with these dogs, and they can sniff you out and stuff. And it would not work with 15 people.
No, not a chance.
It would be chaos and awful. Yeah. But the way that it ended up playing in Destiny was so good.
Yeah.
And the amount that they were able to make just an incredible experience that only could have worked with a low player count and still felt like a big raid. Yeah. So actually, to me, this is like a rallying cry to do more mega dungeons.
Yes.
And actually, Ian touches on a really big change in the game there, where we actually we do not have that traditional dungeon experience as much in M+, because M+ then gives you that timer and stuff. But I think about what I really want from a dungeon, and it is, now that we're in a really good, solid raid team, it is taking some of those people, going to the broker dungeon, and maybe doing it on the hard mode. Because I think there is like per boss hard modes, like there was in Mechagon.
Yes, they've announced some intent there.
Yeah. I mean, personally, if the entire game was that and Mythic Plus didn't exist, I would be happier. But I know a lot of people, love M+, love the MDI and all that stuff, so fair enough to them. But yeah, if anything, Ian saying that just makes me think, what I want is more mega dungeons. They are great.
Actually, FF14 is a good one to talk about here, because it splits parties into 4 by default. So you'll go into a dungeon, and it'll be two DPS healer tank.
Right.
Then you go up to that's a light party, it's called. Then a full party is 8. So trials will be full parties, and those are single bosses. Those are single bosses that are basically raid bosses. They have a number of phases. They're only a couple minutes long, but they're just these these big story elements you fight. They're very, very fun. 8 players, kind of bounded, and then you have like the full raids, which are alliances, which is 2 full parties. So you have 16 players.
Right.
And Destiny kind of gets that splitting effect because of the 6 players.
Yeah.
We went into 6. It was 3. It was like team 1 was 3, team 2 was 3.
Yeah.
And that was always solid. So FF kind of has that thing where it has this tiered content of different sizes for different party sizes, different things like that. But it's all specific content for that size, as opposed to Flex, which works, but.
Yeah, I think what I've learned is I need to play TBC, and I also need to play Final Fantasy XIV.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I also need to hold down everything else.
Yep.
So that might be impossible.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
But, yeah, okay. Good shit. My level of excitement for this new Mega Dungeon only increases.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, that's an interesting take. I hadn't thought of it that way. That sounds about right. We got a question submitted by Dizdick. Brian, this is for you. Will summoning stones be available at launch in the Burning Crusade, or are those going to come later?
Oh, that's an easy one. We will absolutely have those at launch in the Burning Crusade. They were introduced originally with Burning Crusade, and they replaced the original meeting stones. And we actually, in Classic, had to disable that functionality to try to bring back that authentic experience. It'll be a pleasure to be able to bring it back. I know I enjoyed using them very much myself as a way to kind of bring other people over to the dungeon when we were waiting for them to run over. And I think it's a really good feature for Burning Crusade to be able to have those.
All right, sounds great. Got a great one here for Steve. And this is many players, many variations of this question, but here's the one we settled with. What's Bolvar up to, and where is his story going in Shadowlands? Will he have a major role to play? I would think yes, but let's hear it from you.
Yeah, it was one of the great fun things about Shadowlands was to be able to get Bolvar Fordragon, this legendary hero, back in the mix again, free of the Lich King's crown, being himself again, and bringing all that knowledge and wisdom to the table. And we saw him being, pivotal in us getting to the Shadowlands, in guiding us as we went to rescue our friends Thrall, Jaina, Bane, from Torghast, and we saw that there was a price to pay for those visions where he got to peer in there and see what the jailer and Sylvanas were up to with Anduin. But he will be front and center for Chains of Domination. He is a great figure to kind of rally the Covenants together and go into the Maw with them and be at the forefront of those efforts of taking the fight to the jailer. So it's going to be really fun to see him in action again.
Oh, I can't wait. Lately, he just stands around the desk.
Comment on that. This is something you talked about and you pretty much nailed yesterday. We were just having a chat, which was Khadgar was pretty damn. Khadgar was pretty awesome.
Yep.
But he was awesome in a way that Magni and Bolvar. Well, Magni wasn't.
Yeah, definitely.
And Bolvar hasn't been yet. Where Magni, he was just sitting there be like, champion, go do. And that was it. It's like we got so little of Magni actually being there in the world. Whereas in Warlords of Draenor, Khadgar was the guy who sent us to do stuff, but in a way, Khadgar, he's my boy. I was doing things with him.
Yeah.
And with Bolvar, we haven't necessarily got that yet. Bolvar is just kind of, we have a bit more interaction with Magni, and that's definitely nice, but actually seeing him take the field, see stuff happen, good.
Yeah, it's like I said, the whole bit in Magni 8.3 where you go to grab Fearbreaker from the wall, and I don't know if he ever swings it. I don't know if he might. He might in some little bit, but it's never a moment where it's like, okay, I'm no longer the speaker for Azeroth. I'm the hammer swinger for Azeroth. Doesn't ever do that, which would have been a cool thing. But with Khadgar, he had all those memes. He almost killed you a couple times with the legendary ring and warlords. He had his own role in Legion. There's loads of things to do with him. Bolvar needs to, once we push back the jailer a bit and Bolvar's not terrified of stepping outside Oribos, there's a good chance we'll get one of that.
I really hope he takes the field. And another thing, I mean, Khadgar was Master Braytek in Stargate SG-1. And that's some pretty big thing. All right.
In the Oribos, and it's fine, but I can't wait to see what he does next.
Yeah. He's got a cool hammer, right? Like, he's got to swing the hammer.
Right, I need to see that thing in action. We will soon enough, I suppose. Mask of Death from the Epoch of Thought Guild wrote in. This one's for Brian. In Burning Crusade, how will PvP titles such as Gladiator, Duelist, and Rival be determined, considering we don't have established battle groups? And I got a little follow-up to that, depending on what you say.
Sure. I mean, that's a really good question, and that comes from, like, originally there was a award for the top player in each battle group, and that really came from the fact that we had technical restrictions where people playing on different, like, hardware installations, like different data center sites, couldn't play with ones playing in other data center sites. And we actually don't have that restriction anymore. You can actually matchmake players across the entire region. And so we think a more fair way to approach this today is to just do a small percentage of people at the very top. We do want to award it to more than like one person, but still a very exclusive title where we want to keep it to like a top select few that is similar to, like, it was, I think, 13 about per region back then. I see Ian nodding, so yeah.
We want 13 battle groups in North America, and I think, depended on size, but pretty similar. There were hundreds of people with this title out of millions of players.
Yeah. Right, it's very small and very exclusive. So we want to do that, and we want to do it top percentages of those players region-wide for that.
So is it appropriate to have Arena Season 1 start so early in Burning Crusade then?
We actually think we were talking about maybe we want to start it earlier than we announced in the deep dive panel. We're talking, as we've been looking at the gear, we think that it actually might fit more with Karazhan and the Tier 4 gear, and so we might actually move all the Arena seasons up so that Arena Season 1 starts when Karazhan and Gruul and Magtheridon's Lair come out, and then probably have Zulaman come out without an Arena season so that the next season we'll skip over that one.
Well, Chrissy wrote in, had one for Steve. It says, in Stormwind, I noticed some of the refugees from Darnassus mention going back once the smoke clears to collect any belongings. Does this mean that Teldrassil could be rebuilt/regrown and become inhabitable again?
So the devastation to Teldrassil was pretty definitive, and there were a lot of lives lost there. And that's not something that we want to just reverse on a whim. But what I will say is that the story of what the Night Elves went through, of those souls that died there, that as we have found out, if you play the Ardenweald campaign, you'll know that they funneled into the Maw. Their story is not yet done. And certainly a figure who is bound up in that story is Tyrande Whisperwind. And she is very much on the path of trying to find out the future of her people, even as she's dealing with that thirst for revenge against Sylvanas and dealing with the Night Warrior powers that are growing to consume her. So that's definitely a story that we'll be talking about as we go into Chains of Domination and beyond.
Yeah, she seemed pretty ticked, so I suspect we're not done.
Good reason,
yep. Yep. Oh, yeah. Holly, here's one for you. Will you open fresh classic servers in addition to the TBC servers? There seems to be a large demand for it, asks Shadow Wedbro. He's from a Few Good Lads Guild. What do you think about that? Another classic server, given the demand?
Great question. For our timeline for Burning Crusade Classic, we won't be launching any fresh start servers, but I can promise you we've got our eyes on that in our future, and we'll be discussing it once we get through a stable and successful launch with Burning Crusade Classic.
Nice. And what are the things that has been talked about before is layering? Do you guys still have many concerns about players' reaction to layering, and they want this authentic experience? that existed when the game first launched, and by the time TBC rolled around, there were better ways to deal with things anyway, so not so much of an issue. But are you worried at all about that still? I mean, I know it's an issue for some players. Is that an issue for you guys?
Honestly, our focus is on whoever wants to play should be able to play. We would rather have layers on for a short period of time if necessary so that everyone can get in and play. And that's always going to be our focus, serve as many players as we can who want to play.
Fantastic. We do have time for one big final question. There was a whole lot of video at this BlizzCon Online that made a lot of people very excited. Actually, I have all kinds of personal questions about it, but I'm going to hold those and instead ask this common question that we got in the Twitch chat today. How do you get the Wandering Ancient mount? John, you want to handle this one?
Oh, you bet. That's a great one. So, little background. Last year, when we were finishing up Shadowlands, our art team really, they were ahead of schedule, or at least they were on schedule. And we decided, it would be awesome to give a gift back to all of our players and build a mount for them. And so the art team put together some cool ideas. They brainstormed on things they wanted, and we literally put it to a vote. And we let our community decide what would they like for us to make for them. And the winner was the Wandering Ancient. And so the requirement to get the Wandering Ancient really is you got to have Shadowlands. And we will have the Wandering Ancient in the 905 patch update. And that will be next month. I won't tell you the exact date because, but you can probably guess and you'll be pretty close. But we want to make sure that the patch is ready before we put it out. But we're really excited that you'll be able to ride that around. It is a really awesome mount. And if you have a question, I want to be able to answer that. But before, since you said this was the final question, I just want to thank you, Scott, for being our host, being a familiar face, supporting our community and us. You do such a great job. So thank you for agreeing to do this for us.
Oh, well, thank you. It's absolutely my pleasure. In fact, since we're being so nice to each other, I really liked your introduction for the WoW stuff. But also, my last question for you is a tack on to the Wandering Ancient. Can you confirm or deny that there's a little worm on top that actually controls this millennium-old treant who would probably not want somebody sitting on them anytime they felt like it?
Don't tell the story about the worm. You can't talk about the worm, John. I told you do not talk about the worm.
Shoot. I was afraid that this was a topic we were not going to be able to touch.
I'd be willing to bet that Eli's got something in that Wandering Ancient that only the art team knows about.
But there is a worm. I'm not going to reveal their relationship. It's very special.
Wow. All right.
But I suggest watching the panel around how we went about creating it. I think it's going to be really interesting for everybody to watch, and it is a really awesome mount. So definitely check it out.
And wait till you hear the actor that we have voicing the worm.
Yeah, one of the best.
Well, just like the worm, it has to leave sometime, and we do too. But I do want to say a gigantic thank you to everybody on this panel. You guys were awesome this year, and such a strange year to be able to still get together and ask the questions and talk about the game in this way is just it's a great experience for me. I know that for sure, and I know a lot of people listening really appreciate it as well. So thank you guys for your time and for sharing your answers with the community. And moreover, huge thanks to the community. You guys don't have a Q&A without your questions. There's no A without the Q. So thank you for submitting those and for being a part of this each and every time that it happens. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for watching the Q&A. Hope you really enjoy the rest of the Saturday's content. And go play WoW. Play a Demon Hunter. He's really good in zones that you don't like playing with other classes. You can fly really high, and it's really great. I'm not pointing at anything particular. I'm not going to get specific, but I'm just saying Demon Hunters for the win right now in a certain covenant. Anyway, that's going to do it for us.
I think a few raiding Demon Hunters might be...
Yes, I'll just clip that and send it to Nikki. Like, there you go. There you go.
Our lead WoW editor is... Demon Hunter, and he was a very happy boy at the start of this tier. Okay, the Q&A has happened. It would be silly if I did not acknowledge what is going on in our chat, which is
what's that?
People are saying that this BlizzCon Q&A is indeed a BlizzCon Q&A.
Yeah, there's.
I think this is almost more of a BlizzCon Q&A than most BlizzCon Q&As, but not in the way that we expected, because we didn't have people saying, "Hello, this is me, NoobSlayer69 from whatever server. Shout out to my boys, and also thank you to my mum." You know, all of, oh my god, and you're like, "Gee, it's been 5 minutes. Can we get the question?" So that wasn't that. But when were questions for this taken? Questions.
Yes, a long ass time ago.
Yeah, the questions for this were taken last week before any of this stuff was announced and before the leaks. So, could they actually react to anything? The questions, that is. I think no. And also, what we covered before we hopped into the Q&A today is right, the panels that we saw yesterday where we got, you know, Darth Hazakostas with his cool moody lighting and stuff behind him, which I thought was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it was.
That was obviously pre-recorded ages ago, before they really knew what they could talk about. Because if you go on to Wowhead and you look at the interviews that a bunch of these Blizzard staff have done, they actually go into detail. There is something called Covenant Strikes that is a new feature in the maw, and all of these details that they went into. So obviously they had none of that stuff locked in, or not, you know, locked into the degree where they could actually properly talk about it at BlizzCon. They had none of that prepared when they actually went to film the panels that were a part of like the opening ceremony and the 2 WoW panels. So yeah, these questions were therefore not really able to respond to, I think, what a lot of like chat would have actually liked.
I think the prime one is that person who asked about new fresh classic servers. It's like that stuff's kind of
already covered.
Yeah, that's fairly covered. So it's I don't know what they could have done to make this significantly better, but they wanted to honor the time old tradition of a BlizzCon Q&A, and this one was, again, it comes down to this whole BlizzCon. It's this. Is there a massive purpose for it? No. Is it okay? Sure, I think.
Yeah, so for other things, so 4 super chats we've got from Nino and from Lars. Lars, probably a player who's a little bit more focused on non-Simcraft related bits of WoW content. I'll definitely say calling to fire people is not really the solution here, and it's going to be counterproductive. But I think what is worth doing is, diving into the reason why someone would ask that question. And it is that, if you are somebody for whom, delving into Ubers and going in this adventure with your friends, if that's the type of way you're playing WoW and you're really there as a role-playing game player, you're going to see Raider.io and time trial dungeons, and you're going to think that the game is moving away from you. And to that, I'll say I actually agree in a whole bunch of ways.
Definitely.
I, though, don't think that should be fixed by Blizzard changing what I think is working for a bunch of players. Your move M+, and sure, if everything's a mega dungeon without a time trial, I will be a lot more happy. A lot of WoW people will not be happy. Instead, I think the way to fix that problem is more mega dungeons. It's great to see we got one nice and early this time around. And also, pretty big also, is doing things like reputations in a non-systematized way. And we've talked about this before, but if everything's a world quest, it doesn't matter what rep the world quest is even doing. It all feels the same. There's just that way that there's a bunch of boys called the Netherwing, and they're over there, and they have their own unique content. That doesn't happen in the game right now. So perhaps to somebody like Lars, who is worried about the sort of this simming and the esportsiness, perhaps that is something that putting more content like that in the game would make
I think it's fundamentally I think World of Warcraft can be enough for every type of player. It was in the past. It still can be. It's just Blizzard need to figure out what's keeping their content cadence so low. Yeah. Because if you had, obviously, the way they do the mega dungeons is actually pretty smart. The way usually, I can't remember how long it was until Mechagon and Kara became Mythic Plus dungeons, but they were scaled for patch. They were scaled for Season 2 very hard at the start. So you were limited to that for a period of time, but you're going to be limited to that anyway because it's content that will you'll finish it. So I think they can solve this problem by just going super deep on, okay, what is stopping us from just reusing a bunch of art assets and getting a design team in the corner and make like, here's another mega dungeon. Here's a mega dungeon every patch. Here's something like Deaths of Chromie that's completely divorced from all like actual player progression.
Yeah.
And it all boils down to just more content.
Absolutely. I wish Blizzard would actually just reuse art assets more if it's in the service of more content. Because the thing that's really expensive to do when you are, making a game is making your big new systems and implementing them. Making all of your art assets. I mean, not to get into any interesting local stories, but I think you would know what I mean.
Yep,
you can spend a lot of money making art assets, and it doesn't, not really the right play. So for here in this situation, Blizzard, reuse the hell. Be as thrifty as you can with the art assets that your team is making, because they make awesome art assets, and I would be more than happy to experience more content within those tile sets.
Yeah.
And I almost wish that we had a form of dungeon that wasn't a mega dungeon, as in does not need to be extremely humongous and long, but another type of dungeon that just feels a bit more like Halls of Reflection. Because, a dungeon like Halls of Reflection is a bit harder to do in an M+ sort of situation, because the RP elements don't feel great in... with like, not Archway. Was it Archway? The other one, the Nightborn RP heavy, awesome dungeon where
Core Stars?
Core Stars, yeah.
Core Stars, yeah.
Should say, by the way, we are, I think, well, what should we do? Because we could hop on to Wowhead or something and take a look at some of the Q&As and stuff that's happened if we want to, or we could do that later once more people post theirs.
That's a good question.
Do it either way.
I think... It's hard to say. Hard to say what you do, but
let's see. While we think that through, in terms of things, somebody asked there. I've lost it. Yes, Brian asked them, rate this year's BlizzCon from 1 to 10, and I'm going to respond to that by saying that sometimes the question is more interesting than the answer. And I think my response to this, I know this sounds like it's being mega diplomatic, but my honest response is I don't even rate this as a BlizzCon. I kind of rate it as like something different. I think the Blizzard could have had a far larger perception success if they perhaps didn't call it BlizzConline and they called it something different, and then players didn't have that expectation, such that you wouldn't be asking if this thing that we watched, which was obviously different from a BlizzCon, was it a good BlizzCon? To which it's obviously not a BlizzCon, even though it is kind of called that.
Yeah, was there not another time? I can't remember what year it was. What year was it? They said, "All right, no BlizzCon this year." Did that not happen one time?
I remember that. Yeah. I forget exactly.
Yeah, it was one of the earlier expansions around that. Yeah. They went, "Okay, we're not going to have BlizzCon this year because we have nothing to show you. Sorry about that. Yeah, but we don't want to ruin your expectations." That's kind of what they should have done here, but I guess they had too much pressure from a couple places, and it was a bit quiet around that time. But yeah, I think that's kind of the thing. It's not super BlizzCon.
Yeah,
it should have been a couple of videos on each game.
Yeah, which they've done to great success in the past.
Yes,
like the 8.3 announcement, the Rise of Ashara one. Yeah. They were on a really good roll there, so hopefully you can do more of that in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Should we do a brief stint then of
sure.
of going through this? I think people would enjoy it.
We'll go in.
Like, to be honest, you're going to get more BlizzCon information for what we're going to do right now than you will have from actually watching BlizzCon.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's because the developers had a lot more in their heads than they were able to say in the pre-recorded segments that we saw yesterday.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the PC Gamer interview as an example. It has plenty of detail from in.
Yeah, big thanks to Perk and the team for putting, on the Wowhead team for putting all this stuff together in a very, very useful way.
Yeah, they're on point with basically all of this stuff.
So, okay, yeah. So this was quite fun. Raiding, okay? Raid loot has been something that, I mean, on our raid team, we've experienced it's a bit stingy sometimes. Especially when, there's no master loot, so the smaller amount of loot that we do get, sometimes we can't distribute that in the way that we would want.
Yeah.
And to that, we do not have a very good answer, but we do have Ian saying to PC Gamer that, well, read it out. So, we do have some exciting plans in the works to also give a special exciting reward to raiders who are going into the new raid, and maybe even being able to tinker some of the powers of domination that we get in these unique armor sets and more. So it seems like, and I'm pretty sure I picked this up from another interview, it's not up on the screen right now, but I'm fairly sure that those are going to be like powers that you get on your raid gear that are going to make your raid gear a bit more ideal for the raid. And I guess we're both heroic progression raiders. 2 days a week. So we're not hardcore, but we do take it seriously when we do it.
Yeah.
Other than when we banter too much and wipe in Dark Vein for 5 times in a row for no good reason. That was fun. So it seems like VP is not something they're going to be bringing to raiding, but instead they maybe want to make our raid gear more interesting.
Yeah, I think the way this reads to me like another try at, and this is going to be framed really negatively because of the connotations, but it seems like it's probably a try at raid specific corruptions. That could be what
I'd be worried if that would go too far.
Yeah, the comparison there is likely not to do with anything of the strength. It is more just, here's some stuff on your gear. And I imagine if they do it again, it'll be deterministic. Actually, okay.
Oh, they can learn all the lessons from corruptions where they eventually put a currency on it.
Yeah.
So if we have domination powers as things, they, I would say, would have to not drop randomly in the raid gear, because then we're getting a bit closer to corruptions and Titan Forging and some of that bad RNG. Yeah. But if some of that raid gear is just gear that has an effect, like a Crucible of Storms, or whatever
the Crucible effect, or even the BFA, the King's Rest Sword Getiku, which is just here. This sword's better because of an effect.
Yeah, so that could be good. I'll say it definitely, though, as a raider, it does feel good that, that. Yeah. I mean, there's Ian just saying, yeah, we get it. Sometimes you felt a bit overshadowed by these things.
Certainly true.
And that is really good. Yep. Okay, let's move on to our next point then. Torghast. So, Torghast is one of those things where it's like, you run out of deaths, you lose, you get nothing for it, and that is an experience that even these days very few roguelite games have.
Yeah, no, you losing in a roguelite isn't supposed to feel bad unless you had a super awesome combo that you felt there. The intent of roguelites is for you to lose until you get either really good or a super clean run.
Yeah.
Which isn't represented fully in Torghast because of the thing that's kind of prevalent throughout all of WoW is you never expect to lose.
Yeah. I mean, they've trained us, WoW players, to, unless it's a dungeon or a raid, you don't die and lose and get nothing, which I think is not great for player expectations.
Yeah.
But for something like Torghast, I mean, it is an entry into the roguelite genre in a way. And so what we have here is Ian saying that, what if instead it's more of a rating or a score, more of a spectrum of success, rather than, a situation where you run out of deaths, you lose, you're kicked out, you get nothing. Between a few other interviews, they've sort of said similar things. Of course, we killed the Targru where we defeat him anyway, in the new raid. So it's like we defeat that in the new raid, and it kind of removes him, because the death counter is going away. At least it seems it's going away in some manner. We'll have to see.
Yes, it is. I think it is. Yeah.
And that's in the same way that the Eye of the Jailer is changing, because we go into the new raid and we defeat the Eye of the Jailer.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if that's Odin's Eye. That's a bit of a thing. Is that what he got from that deal?
Yeah. Okay. That, in terms of an overall experience of progression throughout an expansion, that's great. If they can, obviously doing that patch to patch is a bit awkward, but imagine that similar feeling, but I mean, it would never work with the content kids, but imagine the feeling of you spend a couple weeks in the maw and it's kicking your ass and throwing you out, but then you band up and actually kill the thing that's a problem in the raid, and now you're free. That's the patch cadence doesn't make that a super good experience, but
well, it's like they try to do a little bit of that with your Venari upgrades, but I guess what you're advocating for is heavily like juicing up what those Venari upgrades would actually do to you, such that you know, it's like you're doing a reputation, you hit revered in that rep, and then bam, you get like a humongous, like a step change in what the gameplay is like.
Yeah, it's the experience of being annoyed by something and then actually going and solving it.
Yeah.
In that form of progression, tying that into a raid and the overall story that way is something that's very, very cool.
Yeah, so let's do our next topic. This is a big one, and it is Stygia. And it's this thing where I think Stygia, for a lot of very gameplay-oriented players, they feel pretty angry that they have got to grind up this Stygia.
Yeah.
And, you know, they don't seem to be thrilled about it. And certainly, I've not engaged in any of that.
Yeah, no, it's...
and then Stygia, I mean, it's like if you're playing a game like Dead Cells or something, and your progression between runs was actually gained by logging in and playing a different video game. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
That's what it's like with Stygia. So what we've got here is Jeremy Fiesel talking and basically saying that, with Venari, it's all going to change a bit.
Yep.
So, and this actually gives us some more, a little bit more color as well on what the content's going to be like.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be new Venari content, which we see, and a new currency for Venari. Now, Stygia is currently on the PTR locked to only Season 1 sockets for Season 1 gear and item level 226 for conduits. So they're obviously sunsetting how Stygia exists right now.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but they clearly want to change it up, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, I guess it's learning the lesson they had to learn from all of the currency resets I've had to do over time. Like the most recent one, I guess, would be the Residuum.
Yeah.
Where they're like, okay, how do we deal with transitioning between seasons?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll jack up the prices we'll jack up the prices like 100x, and that'll stop people from farming. And this is a version of just going, okay, we've decided, nope, this is your Season 1 currency, this is your Season 2 currency. And I think that's basically the best way to do it.
It's even like the tech implementation.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you're going to completely change what Stygia is, but then still carry forward Stygia into the next patch, it's going to be a pain in the ass to do in the back end.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's good, and it definitely has us like primed for some decently major changes. Pretty excited about that. There's more here though from Jeremy. So as new content is unlocking in the Maw, there's the new zone, the regular sort of Maw space as well. He's saying we're getting these Legion Assault style Covenant strikes, where basically the Covenants are trying to like invade up the Maw. They've got a bunch of mini objectives, and they culminate in a big finale. So that's going to be more interesting.
Yeah.
For me, though, I want to see how do they feel a little bit more like the more modern Guild Wars 2 world events.
Oh, yeah.
Which are really cool. I mean, there's one where there's like a dragon, and the dragon's fallen, and this zone is basically just this fallen dragon. And the zone content for that is like really pretty intricate and pretty damn cool for like a massive group effort. So I'd love to see them take a bit more inspiration and go further in those, instead of it just being, we're going to spawn a bunch of world quests, and after you do 4 world quests, you can go and do a little finale scenario thing.
For the player experience side of things, it strikes me that this is the first time that you're assaulting.
Yeah.
This is the first time that you're actually invading a zone with these Legion Assault, as opposed to, obviously you're defending against the Legion, and then in the modern, in the BFA, it was always the faction stuff. And so this being you pushing back with your Covenant, especially if this is done so you're going with all the other Covenants. So you've got like a Maldraxxus specific one, and etc.
I think it's in a different interview, but I think there is Covenant specific stuff, like they mentioned like a Maldraxxus, like Necropolis coming in.
Yeah, I read that as well.
Which that could be cool.
Yeah, if they can nail the experience of like, because one of the things that was most annoying about the Covenant campaigns of 9.0 kind of screeching to a halt was that you spent all this time getting all these big upgrades.
Yeah.
And you powered up your Covenant to the maximum. And it was like, cool, when can we use this?
Yeah.
The answer is obviously next patch, but if they can get that to actually feel like it was it was there from the start or was intended. And
Yeah.
get that super strong feeling of, oh, all the work I put in is actually worth something, and I see it in this experience.
We might actually give a shit about our covenants if we can see them in action doing things instead of just us arriving at our covenants, and especially for the Bastion people, just sitting there and being so frustrated with the way that they run things.
Yeah. If I can go into battle in the Maw and Pelagos actually fights instead of going, oh, I'm not sure if I can do this, then that'll be a progression.
This is something that might seem odd when people hear it first, but I hope these feel less like world quests and more like patch 5.3. Now, 5.3, I'm not going to defend what that was like as an overall experience, because you intercept a caravan, you do a little world boss, and it did not have a lot of content. Yeah. But it did have this feeling of stuff is happening in the Barrens. There is this, maybe a horde, Garrosh, like his cart of supplies, and it's moving from here to here, and you've got to go and intercept it at some point, and look at this icon move across your map. That is so different from a player experience perspective than just, we have dotted a bunch of world quests on the map, go do them. And it feels very, very flat, very static, very rigid. I really want to see those 5.3 experiments just be ramped up. I think that is really what WoW World content needs. So hopefully when in March we see this PTR, we actually get some of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem is that they are implemented as world quests. So you look at them and you go, oh, world quests, but they're dotted together. Like if it feels new and different, then a name's not going to matter if it's still a world quest. But,
yeah, absolutely. So something that so many of us have been asking is, how do we get that really, really, really cool gear as a transmog set that we're currently getting a little bit of via our Legos? And here's our answer. It's the new raid gear. Now, a whole bunch of people have been sort of disappointed that it's not class sets thus far.
Yeah.
But I think the class sets are a larger project. I think they're probably 9.2. Yeah. Maybe a 9.3.
I think, at least as far as I was concerned, after I heard the time frame that they'd set up, or the way Ian talked about it when he did, I thought that was 9.1, as in sorry, we haven't had them ready for launch, but they're good. But I think that especially with and I can't remember if they touched on this when in the Q&A, but whenever was it Ian or was it Eli said about the customizations? The customizations, Eli, I think, yeah. Talking about the customizations, saying they don't have the resources for that at the minute. Where could those resources be if it's people working with the technical people who are working on little bits of character stuff? I mean, everyone was very happy to see the silver hand come with the tome on the belt. Yeah. Everyone's been super excited to see like all the different things that they've added, the wings, the back stuff. I actually think that this is, as you say, a pretty major project. They're going to try to blow everyone away when they come back with the 9.2, with the 9.2 or hopefully 9.2 of just, hello, we have made the best class sets we possibly could have using all of our new tech, using everything we have available. Here it is. They're beautiful. Please clap.
Yeah, I think they know that if what if that is it? Maybe it's 9.2 or 9.3, and it's talked about at a 2021 November BlizzCon. Yeah. And they know that they can say, because think about it, our raid that we do is in Torghast. Yeah. So where are we going to go after that? So if they have some major announcement about where we're going next that really impresses people, and then they say your class sets are back, but in so much more of a high effort way, a more customized way, whatever it might be. I think they know that that's going to feel like another mini expansion, and the people will go absolutely mad for it.
If they can do another Argus announcement kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where like, oh, this is big, then people will feel that way, I think.
Yeah, so in terms of other things, then there's empowered conduits. Come on, computer. This little MacBook's doing a lot of work today.
It's driving millions of pixels and encoding the stream at the same time. It's doing God's work. Like.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing then, you might be wondering what's going on with conduits. I mean, obviously you'll know from the coverage that we've done, this is, I believe, from Soul's interview, but you'll know from the coverage we've done that we are generally not a group that thinks that conduits were, whoa.
Hello
there.
Presumed.
Well, Apple, your M1 silicon certainly is getting its chance today. Okay, we'll restart this segment.
Yeah, go.
Okay, right. The next thing to talk about is conduits and what they're going to be like in the future. And we don't really know exactly yet, because as it says here in Soul's interview, it's very early development. Now, we did get a little bit more from Morgan Day when we were talking to him. I think what Morgan added for us is that one of the things they'll be doing is these empowered conduits and empowered slots within your soulbind. And that could do things such as make your Covenant signature ability better or different. So, I mean, if there's something there where I can make my soul shape do something new and interesting, you know, even if it's just your soul shape has a larger blink but lasts shorter versus your soul shape doesn't have a blink but lets you move faster, or maybe different soul shape animals have slightly different effects. Well, I don't know what that could be, but there is potential there for the Covenant signature abilities. But yeah, your TLDR here, right, is you can take individual Covenant slots and empower them to unveil more power or more abilities. So we don't know what it's going to be exactly yet. Yeah. But I think that could help us care more about this system. If you're not going to remove it, at least make it something that people could possibly care about.
Yeah, it's, I guess, the thing where, because of the way that reads to me, you can empower individual conduit slots to unveil either more power or more abilities. More abilities implies, given how the slots work, and they usually modify abilities as it is, that implies it would add additional effects abilities or something along those lines. It's very strong. Because, I mean, one of the things that I really like as a paladin is Echoing Blessings. I think that's his name. Where it gives freedom, gives extra move speed after it's done, and Bop gives extra physical damage reduction. And that is, like, it's in every slot that every one of my soulbinds, because it's so useful. It's extra move speed as a paladin. It's like it's an echo of the PvP talent that gives 30% move speed, and it's just fantastic. Like, more of that, where it actually gives like bonus effects to use abilities that are that are otherwise kind of pointless. Yeah,
that's the strength. That's so much more interesting than you hitting the end of your soulbind and getting 5% crit.
Yeah.
Which is boring.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Max Thompson who says, so Anduin walked the path of ascension without anyone noticing him. What a joke. Not true. He did walk that, and the only person who noticed him was Uther. And there's actually, or Bluther as we now say, and there is a reason for that. So the jailer wanted to get control of Anduin because Anduin is seemingly one of the more pure of heart people that just about everyone would trust in the Warcraft universe, right? Like, we all know that with Anduin. Some people don't like that about him, other people do, but he is one of the, I think, the genuine good guys with complete good intentions. And if anyone, who has got the ability to actually look at a soul and see what's going on, they're going to see that he's got an extremely pure soul. And that actually means that an Anduin that you're effectively mind controlling is the most ideal agent to have, the most ideal tool. Because, yes, Anduin was able to walk up there, and none of these Carians noticed. Now, you could say it's a bit of a plot hole that the Carians would maybe not notice Maw magic or something like that. I guess for the Carians, it's already been established that they are so goddamn uncreative and, just dogmatic that maybe they're blind to things.
Yeah.
And then to what you say, there's a reason why the only person who noticed him is Uther, because Uther has had a very intimate personal experience with that Maw power and dominating magic. So, I mean, there we go.
And it wasn't even Uther per se. It was his scar. It's that very Harry Potter-esque thing of this scar is emanating with power which reacts. So that would explain why, like, the Archon, for example, didn't know at a glance, but as soon as he spoke up, she's like, oh, okay, I know what's going on here.
Yeah. Ben's Gold comes in here and says, we're literally missing a lot of details. We see the end of the process of Sylvanas and Anduin. And I think you are completely spot on, Benz. I wish that there was some way that this stuff was a storyline that you played through instead of you do enough Torghast runs each week, and then you're rewarded with a cinematic you can watch. Just that I bet 99.9% of the people who actually watched those Sylvanas is having a talk with the jailer cinematics, they did not get that because they were playing through Torghast. They got it because WoW had posted an article about it because it broke, and then it goes out to the community. And I'm not saying that in a way where it's WoWhead's fault. It's like, this is key parts of the story that so many people will not have ran into. I mean, so many of the people that I know that, could be playing WoW in a way that's different to me and my guild, sure. Or not my guild, Nikki's guild, but our guild, there we go. They're not going to naturally run into this because they may not be a humongous Torghast player, and they're going to miss out on that story. And that means the Blizzard is infinitely just tell, don't show, instead of show, don't tell. And that is the core thing. It's that thing, like, and even in the interview, you'll see it when it comes out. Like, I love diving into the lore. Like, talking with Steve Denuser about that stuff was so fun. And I think that the lore is really good and really, really, really fun and rich. And that's why we enjoy covering it so much on the channel. But to what Ben says, yeah, it can feel like we're just kind of getting the core plot beats told to us rather than shown and experienced via our characters. And that's the sort of thing where I think Blizzard, they need to rely less on, or they need to work out a way where they can weave their mysteries and have the lore expand in that really big, broad way that they want, and that is super fun. But maybe then also have that be rooted around a story that is a bit more linear and simple. And we talked about this yesterday, but it comes back to Legion. Legion had a simple storyline. And I think that's why it worked for a bunch of people, especially once you hit Argus. Like, your character went through this storyline, you go through the raid, it's not fragmented, it's so easy to follow, and that meant that whenever Sargeras appeared and all of that stuff happened, like, that was all expected and established, and people had the framework to understand it. And they were not left asking questions in, people's stream chats. About, this not making sense. So I think that's what I'd say to Blizzard. It's that sort of thing where it's really hard when you're doing an MMO, from what I understand, for how they make the MMO and their priorities, to have enough time to actually tell all this story. Yeah.
It's a problem, I think, of divergent content, but a unified story. Where they want people to go into Torghast, and they kind of try to lead you there, but they don't force you. And this is going to sound like, this is a very bad way to do it, but the way they got over it with the artifact weapons in Legion, where someone from your order hall showed up and followed you around Dalaran, that was annoying, but it was like, well, I guess they did the same with Tyranda's Sentinel Owl in BFA, where it's like, this is stuff you need to pay attention to. I think they need to just go, okay, we are going to force players to see this stuff. It may not be super nice, but here's the content. Please go play it. Yeah,
they need to have the framing so that people can actually get the story. Yeah, I think that's why, like, channels like ours and Nobles are often just of high value to people, because they want to see that story just be in one place where it's told with pacing. So it's like, when we're doing a video, we can pace out the video that we do so that, like, the storytelling of it means you can enjoy the story. And then enjoy your WoW experience more. More of that needs to be in WoW.
We end up taking all of their story beats and, like, reassembling it in a way that's a little bit more of a linear, enjoyable experience, versus trying to keep track of all these different things as they crop across different weeks and different, like, content types that maybe you don't touch for so long.
I think with WoW Tales, that was one of our things. Like, our WoW Tales MVP, like, should probably kick that over full screen, but, like, our WoW Tales MVP was basically just reframing and doing a little bit of touch-up work to Elwyn Forest story. We then had some, scratch audio, I would say, that was a bit processed. And I would say that the Elwyn Forest experience that I played, and obviously I'm biased because it was a project that I kicked off that was, whatever, but I can say the version of Elwyn Forest that I played was awesome. We were able to ensure that those plot beats were connected. And I mean, even the bit like when the character sends you off to the other side of Elwyn Forest, we had a whole bunch of voice acted dialogue that was appearing on your journey on that mount that we sort of modified so that you would really clearly see the storyline with, just like with the Collector and Vanessa Van Cleef. And it was a really good experience. So it's just that thing where sometimes Blizzard struggle with the tying it together bit. And I think we're seeing that in BFA and in Shadowlands. And perhaps in Legion, they got it being tied together for free because it was a more linear storyline. It was more simple. There's something here. Where is it? Somebody asked, why did Anduin just walk out of Elysian Hold?
Yeah.
Is it? Is it?
Walk into. Walk out, yeah.
Well, somebody said walk out. I'd say there, you will have noticed whenever he put his sword down and all of the Maw energy came out, chains went around all of those Kyrians and sort of, got him, incapacitated them. We obviously don't see how he walked out, but just the fact that Maw magic, in the same way that Maw magic meant that Bolvar could do nothing against Sylvanas.
Yeah.
Even though, you look at the two of them, you're like, this is the Lich King with a humongous hammer. He just has to go bonk and she is dead. Where it's like, no, that Maw dominating power. Yeah. I mean, if that is power that originally comes from the first ones and they are the people who set up this entire thing, then, he probably, or the jailer via his vessel, Anduin, can probably just walk out of there just fine, I'd say.
There's another topic there. I think it was instanced solo raids. That was
instant solo
for people. Yes, there.
And
I have lost.
I mean, the idea of an instanced solo raid. Okay, if I could do that for a past expansion and get the storyline good, and then have this like solo raid thing, that would be really cool.
Yeah, there's kind of I think there's two ways they could do it. They could do technically three. There's the instant solo raid where you just have one player, it's balanced for one player. That doesn't really feel right.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to actually do the raid but you're solo, it doesn't make any sense. I would probably draw you out, which is where I think just having allies, and that's something it definitely wasn't extremely good. But the NPC companions in the Access Reach dungeon,
that was neat.
They more or less did the job perfectly of, hello, here you go. Here's a group content, but you're not always in a group. They have NPCs filling it. I believe Shadowbringers added that in Final Fantasy 14 for people who didn't want queue times for story dungeons and raids. So I think they've got the option of guide people through that through NPCs, and they can avoid grouping up and group content that way. Or they could do which is essentially again what FF14 does, and it just goes do it.
Yeah.
So the next part of this story is the boss fight against the big bad, and we've designed that as a raid or as a trial. Sorry, we've designed that as a trial. You need 7 other people. Here's our group finder. The duty finder will it's LFR, but it's not LFR difficulty. It's like normal difficulty.
Yeah.
And I think that having a auto matching group tool that will get players who are looking to do that, and then having the correct incentives for players who have already done it to get back in, I think is one of the biggest ways to do that. But
yeah, it's interesting. Like, if you were making a new thing that was a solo raid, as a patch feature in the way that a patch can have a mega dungeon. Yeah, I mean, Mage Tower was really fun and stuff like that. Could we have something that's a few bosses and you go in and it's some crazy solo challenge in a way that feels different to everything else? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, why?
Be down with something like that.
I guess that's another, instant solo raids. You'd kind of redefine what a raid is, but maybe they should have major story elements done in a Mage Tower that is scaled for being completable by everyone. So instead of having us defeat Sire Denathrius at the end of a 10 boss raid, maybe Sire Denathrius is a boss and the raid is full of lore, but maybe a little bit separate off.
So I think to wrap us up for today's stream, we'll just go over this highlight of some of the kind of more mainstream press interviews that happened, because they seem to have happened yesterday instead of today. So, our first one, what we got? Tazavesh, the Veiled Market. Yeah, we already know that. Capturing the spirits of the Gringotts heist in Harry Potter. I have not seen that movie, or I don't remember it. But yeah, sure, fun. Flying via the 9.1 campaign, not rep. We already knew that, but that's actually really good.
Fantastic.
New Torghast layers, new aesthetic wing. Fair enough, but that is not what Torghast needs right now.
Yes.
It needs way more powers. We know those are coming.
Yeah.
But as Morgan Day alluded to in the interview that we did, they are looking at how they can restructure some of Torghast. So
yeah, I think they didn't get the result they expected from it immediately, and they've put so much work into it that I think they will give it the time they need to get it to basically give it a version 2 and a version 3 until it's right.
Like, not to spoil the interview, we've got to wrap that all up together and make it a good piece of watchable content for you. But one of the things that Morgan said was that, like, because of the initial launch reaction to that, they then had to nerf stuff down. And I could just sort of tell that it's like, from his perspective, it's not exactly where he wanted things to be, and they weren't super content with it. So good. It's that thing. I am going to defend Torghast as a thing that could be really, really, really awesome. I think it's got humongous issues as implemented now. Definitely. But there's a baby with the bathwater thing, and sometimes the WoW community can be, pretty spicy in things. Yeah, and we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We should applaud Blizzard and encourage them to make Torghast something that actually works instead of just scrapping the whole thing, because there is so much potential there. So moving on.
One moment, I see the camera is lagging out pretty significantly. That is trying to have Wowhead at 4K on this thing with 8 gigabytes of RAM, so it is certainly... It seems to be a little bit better now.
So that's me looking at it on our output, but maybe for people in the stream, it is a bit different.
Yeah, no, OBS was saying it was overloaded while we were doing some stuff, but it should be. Okay. Should be alright for now. It's still...
this is all stuff that's going on an M1 MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
It is encoding this at 24K.
24K, you can see there, just over 24 kilobits per... 24,000 kilobits per second.
So, this is doing... camera output through a 4K Elgato Streamy Boy. It's doing that, encoding this stream, doing some alpha channel effects at the same time with their transitions and stuff, and doing a 4K display capture. Which honestly is mind-boggling that this is happening on... it's not entry level, but this is not much more powerful than the $899 education priced entry level MacBook Air.
I think one extra core for GPU stuff.
Yeah, one.
Well, not GPU core, but one extra GPU core for the M1 stuff. It's honestly, it's insane. It's doing all this. It doesn't have a fan, so it's making zero noise.
Yeah, there's no fan going. I know a lot of people, especially in gaming land or whatever, are super anti aspects of Apple and Mac and stuff like that. The M1 MacBook Pro, and we're both programmers by trade. I've been building my own PCs since I was in my early teenage years. I imagine it's the same for you.
Yep, I still remember the first time my PC drew blood. That was fun.
Yes.
Yep.
And all that aside, and I was a complete anti-Mac, Apple is terrible, Windows all the way person until 2014, and the first time I actually owned one of their devices. But these M1 chips are insane. I would recommend the M1 Mac stuff to anyone. Obviously, if you want to do gaming, no. If you're only playing World of Warcraft, surprisingly pretty damn good.
This 13-inch MacBook Pro can handle medium settings at just about 60 FPS in Shadowlands, which is kind of insane.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to get better bang for your buck for World of Warcraft in a mobile form factor.
Not bang for buck, I don't think so.
Bang for your buck in something that has the aesthetics of that thing, like being thin and light and having the battery life. Yeah. You could probably get one of those Lenovo Legion thick boys.
Oh yeah.
Those are pretty awesome price performance.
Great.
But the build quality and stuff like that. Okay, so there's our Apple tangent done. Right, let's move over to the team at Polygon. So the mall is going to be safer. We don't need to sneak around it. We already knew that. I mean, man, mounting up in the mall. Oh, please. And, with the Eye of the Jailer going away, as is said here, and being, let's just say reduced in its power, mounting up in the maw, it's Blizzard saying that, the first way they did it didn't work out. And now we're getting a more fun version. And, publicly, I think they might be able to say that, this is the storyline progressing and the maw reflecting that. But I think most World of Warcraft players are either begrudgingly getting Stygia because they need their conduits and their sockets, or they're just going in there to click 15 or 20 souls and then immediately leave, which is what I do. So
it's the thing where this is...
Oh, that's us.
Yep. This was an experiment they ran, and within the... obviously 9.1 seems to be coming out a little bit later than anyone would like, but it's the case where they are iterating on this in a single patch. We're not stuck with them all for the whole expansion.
Yeah.
We've got this for as long as we need to.
Trying to work out how we can put chat up here.
Oh, yeah.
Just so we can, do another, 10 or whatever minutes with you guys before we pop off.
Yeah, so this is a very thrown together at the last minute stream setup. We will have something. I can figure out a lot of stuff like chat. Nezero will have better
Paul,
positions.
before you leave, you just said please upload this as a VOD later. You're going to go get some sleep. Good man, sleep's extremely important. So there's a few things there, because uploading this as a VOD, I mean, that happens by default on the channel. If you want to watch yesterday's stream, you can do it right now. However, I think it's a pretty rough viewer experience just watching a stream VOD. I'm not going to tell you that this is a plan that we have that's mega solid that we're going to do forever, but, and I guess while we've got a bunch of you here, we're thinking of doing something like the WAN show. That would be me and Matt, because
God help us.
I mean, we're thinking of doing that. And then spinning up a clips channel, and the reason why is, this is a fine viewer experience if you want to go in there as somebody who enjoys watching streams. But for a lot of people, they would rather just, if we're streaming for 4 hours, maybe there's 40 minutes of that spread out across the whole thing. That is really the content that you would want to get. So we're trying to work out how we can clip that, make it actually be good, maybe polish it up a little bit so it's a good user experience. Because there's times I sit down, I ad-lib a video, and then that is edited around, and that's the video that's in main upload on our channel. We're going to be doing that by accident here, because we're just streaming and having a chat. So some of what we're going to do there is a clips channel where you should be able to get the choice cuts of a stream like this as videos that you can watch. So I think that's something that should be enjoyable.
We'll get Nick or John to throw in some BGM, because I realize it's definitely sound. It might not be the good experience, but we'll figure stuff out.
And I suppose if the background music is coming in post, then we can ensure the levels are good.
Yes.
Far easier for them to do that. Damn it, Albert says, will you ever stream on Twitch? Here's the thing, I used to. I dislike Google as a company. It's another big evil tech company running on an advertisement model and the click economy in a way that is going to probably make the human race worse. And Twitch is probably a bit like that too. But in terms of policy enforcement, tools, Twitch sucks balls. I'm no offense, there are people I know who at Twitch who are nice people, but screw Twitch is actually my opinion right now. Their leadership seems to completely suck. They are continually out of touch and embarrassing with their community. I think the difference is YouTube doesn't try to do that. YouTube has just decided, hello, we're YouTube, we're a platform, we are going to make platform tools, away you go.
It's a comparison I would draw is maybe Google and Twitter do the same thing where they don't editorialize, where they basically at all they go, this is a tool, you can do with it what you want, we'll step in when things go a little bit wrong, but do whatever. Whereas Twitch is trying to, they see where they are and they seem to be trying to address culture a little bit, which is
which probably going to be a losing battle. And I'd say the more that Twitch tries to police its culture and stuff, the more that the cultural backlash will make that harder for them, and probably just the more the platform will fall to pieces.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd also say I think we're very different to a lot of Twitch streamers in what we do.
Yeah. Definitely.
No harm to any of them, but
of course not.
it's not the content that I would like naturally make. Whereas doing something like Linus Tech Tips WAN show, which I know he does on Twitch, that's something that's more natural to me. And then I think about what is our distribution platform for that content that we're making. Now, we could do that on Twitch. You're not on Twitch right now. You're on YouTube. You found this stream because you subscribed to our channel. We have 620,000 subscribers. If we go to Twitch, we're kind of starting from scratch. And then we're in this thing where when we do a YouTube video, we've always got to shill our Twitch. And then it's like, if we got to be like, hey, we got to shill our Patreon. We got to shill our Twitch. There's like so many calls to action then in our content that people are just like, oh my God, stop it. But if we're already all on YouTube and we do our live streams on YouTube, I mean, there we go. It works. So that's thoughts on that. And hey, maybe this is something that we will clip as the explainer of why we're going for YouTube.
I mean, sounds like a good clips channel trailer. There you go.
There you go. Done. Content.
Yep, I've done it.
It's interesting. Looking at chat, does not seem to be a humongous amount of hype for Twitch.
Yeah, I think Twitch is from the general user experience is not too bad, but I think everyone knows Twitch is bad, but you still go there because that's where your streamers are. So I think actually going there, if you're anywhere else, is a little bit of a problem. Like that's just it. I just don't. It's even from our perspective as this channel, or from the perspective of someone new, it still doesn't seem like a good idea. Yeah. YouTube seems to be completely on the up and up, stream wise. I mean, the example I'll use is the Live Control Studio, which is what we have in front of us to see everything that's going on. It's like better than their video analytics in ways. You can tell their focus is here, and this is going to be a bit of a weird turn, but looking at the uptick in streaming in general, looking at like the VTuber trend, like the HoloLive channels are like 14 of the top 20 super chatted, and they're driving like millions to streaming.
It was funny when we looked at that because who are the top super chatted channels? All VTubers, and then it turns out it was Heel versus Babyface's birthday, and he was on. So it was like VTubers, Heel versus Babyface. So I guess he had a real banger of a stream that day.
Yeah, most have. Oh, there was. What else? Something else I was going to say about the experience. I think. Yeah, I guess it's the culture where Twitch culture in terms of the streaming is very much, hey, this is focused on gaming, focused on like someone's sort of streaming their day, whereas here we can do because people come to YouTube expecting content and videos in like a package form. Yeah, we can get away with. I mean, this stream is certainly getting a little bit on in time, but it's kind of like a show. That's the thing. Same with Watch. It's a show. It's not a stream for 9 hours. It's a show.
I think YouTube's like the expectations of people are like more aligned on this platform for what we would, I think, want to do. I'm not interested in playing a game for 9 hours because, to be honest with you, like, I mean, even personally, I'm an introvert. I would be so tired if I was doing what Preach was doing. Yeah. I should say, somebody mentioned that they don't like Twitch, but they only are there for Preach. Basically same. Like, Preach is, I think, one of the only other like WoW people that I watch. And that's because he's got a different like angle and experience to me, and he's also pretty damn good cracking person. Great guy.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
So yeah, different type of content. I think it makes sense here. Trying to think what else to do. Quick rundown of VTubers says, we could do that as content. I don't think that's the content we should.
Do you have 2 hours? I could certainly try, but
yeah, we just need to just show your YouTube recommendations now. They're completely.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put in Pekara's song in the background here. Beautiful.
Do you think Sylvanas will become her pre-Banshee self when we kill her in the raid? That's fun. Yes. What's going on with Sylvanas? Right, she is not under the dominating influence of anything. This domination magic. I think, based on our interview with Steve that we just did and you guys haven't seen yet, no. Sylvanas is there purely of her own accord, complete her own agency. I think what could happen, though, is Sylvanas could realize that Arthas Menethil was... So, the jailer's been, like, refining his methods as time has went on. By the way, that's from Steve Denuser, confirmed. You will see it in a video. You will see it. You will see those words come out of his mouth soon. Yep. So, what's going to happen when Sylvanas realizes that, like, the entire, like, motivating stuff for her character in general is all the jailer's fault? Like, yes, the jailer didn't drive Frostmourne through her and kill her, but the jailer basically commissioned the creator, commissioned or stole, I don't forget, whatever it is. Yeah. Frostmourne is like the jailer's fault. Sylvanas was killed with Frostmourne. Arthas was being influenced by the jailer as he did that. So she's going to notice, hang on a second, this guy that I've worked for, that I have, like, killed all the Night Elves for, and done all of these horrific things that have meant that I am an utterly irredeemable human, she's going to realize it's all the jailer's fault. Surely.
Yeah, I mean, Rena says, what makes you think she doesn't know? I actually think that's one of the best ways they could do it. Seeing the doubt on her face in that cinematic when she was listening to the jailer and they had Corthia on chains, I think there's a part of her she is willfully ignorant because she feels so strongly that the world's unfair. She's willing to deny to herself that it's actually not. And that's the direction her arc will go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Which I guess fundamentally means, and this is my wild out there prediction, and if it comes true, don't blame me for spoilers. I'm predicting this. It'll be a big epic raid fight at the end of the Sanctum of Domination. We won't kill Sylvanas. We'll knock sense into her. I say, way to put it. We'll beat her senseless, and then she will do something to redeem herself a little bit, and then she'll die in the process. And you'll see this beautiful cinematic. It'll be fully CG. It'll be gorgeous. This song, the Lament of the Highborn, will play.
Yeah, I gotta do that.
Yeah, Lament of the Highborn will play as she's lying, dying, and her soul in her original Banshee form will rise up and go over to some realm that we found that we will find or hear of that suits elven personalities or something.
So it's like Sylvanas in her actions, irredeemable, awful, etc., etc. She might be able to do something at the very end that is not redeeming.
Yes, not redeeming,
but it is her getting her own back on the person who ultimately did cause all of her problems. And then maybe while we and all of Azeroth and everybody's like, Sylvanas, she was a big mistake, massive dickhead.
Yeah.
But maybe the thing could be that instead of going to that dark, horrible void that she was so completely terrified of, maybe she gets her place in the Shadowlands. Maybe she goes to Revendreth and has to just suck it and just go through a horrible time in order to, have the redemptive qualities. And then maybe she gets to go to some place in the Shadowlands that vaguely suits her. I think that would be some decently interesting stuff, but potentially. So for other things, we've got Rap Battle Boutique. Thank you for the super chat. You say keep it up I think that's a sticker. That's not a feature of live streams. We do plan to keep this up. Not necessarily tonight. We are wrapping up, but
please.
But yeah, I mean, the way that this has went has got me and Matt thinking that, at least as an initial thing, we're probably going to pilot a whole bunch of content on Patreon over the next while for like podcasts and things like that. A bit like what the Linus Tech Tips team did with Carpool Karaoke, which started off on Floatplane.
That's right.
But one thing I think we would like to do that is a more immediate short-term plan that will actually go out to people everywhere. Something like the Linus Tech Tips WAN show.
Yeah.
So we will work out how we can put together some sort of weekly thing. We will try to have a format where, it moves along, it is interesting, it is a good watch. Based on like the week's comings and goings, we could sort of work out some topics. I think, we want to keep this up and see how it goes, because we're actually having a lot of fun.
This is certainly an experience, I'll say that.
Yeah, you've been thrown into the deep end.
Yeah, no, it's been fun.
So I guess to wrap us off, and this is actually going to give you a little bit of, just because I've said we're wrapping it up, don't leave just yet, because if this works, you might get to see a little bit of how we actually run things here. Because right now I don't have the stuff to do a Patreon shill.
Yep.
But we could do a Patreon shill that actually shows you something you've never seen before, which is how we actually run the company. So can we open up Notion in this and show it
dangerous.
to them?
What will this open?
Okay, so we want to go to Patreon March. Not March, Feb. Come on. Really?
Good luck. Yeah, just.
You got the Patreon merch Fab project up?
Yep, I will.
Because we do actually have images of the Patreon loot to show you, and also it'll show you how we're using Notion, which is a really awesome tool to run everything and keep our team on sync. Which is all pretty banterous.
Is there anything in these comments that's unreasonable? No, I think we're good.
Incredible.
I think we're good. Let's put this up.
So we put that up here.
So, that's
very tiny.
Yeah, that is. Oh god, that's too.
How do we make this bigger?
Okay, let me. Does Notion respond to Zoom commands? It does. Yes. So I'm going to move that away.
Can I get a poggers in chat for Zoom and display scaling?
So here we go. There is.
Yeah. So is there any way, can we just full screen that and then just punch in really big?
We could, yes, that would make sense.
I think that would be the best experience for the viewers.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so, okay, this is Notion. This is one of the tools that we use.
Docs everyone.
And we did I did very custom build, because this is basically a note-taking application that has been, big revamped into, it's got a full task management system now that I built, which was partially based off a bunch of stuff I've learned from Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank, well, where will you have heard him from? Oh, the Skillshare plugs. Yep. If you want to do a Skillshare, check out today's lore video on the main channel. Let's show him the loot. Let's go. Okay, so this is going to allow you to see the progression of something.
Yes.
So the art process, we'll deal with we'll do this one first. So this started off where we were having a little bit of artist block and what to do with it. I was thinking a lot of Malta, that sort of regions in the world.
Yeah, you can tell.
So yeah, I did a quick little sketch and then I handed it off to Jess, and then this is what she did. And then it went over to Ethan, who is absolutely an illustration machine.
Oh, he's a
absolute rendering machine, which got us to this iteration. And then we were looking at that, and in the feedback process, I was just kind of thinking to myself, all right, this is neat, but I think it needs to be more fantastical. It needs a bit more of that spice, that essence. And that is what brought us to this, whenever it appears on the screen.
Oh, yes.
And it's real big. I was a little bit cut off, but bringing in more fantastical elements and, changing up the composition. So that was really fun. This time around, the pin is the shield. Yes. That'll be really awesome. I can't wait to get them in. They're currently they are in the air. They're in the sky. Yes. Maybe they're in an airport's customs. They were shipped a few days ago. They should be with us within a week, so we'll be able to show them to you in person.
Yep, cool.
But shield pin height 3 centimeters. Yes. So that's some really fun stuff. There's the backing card. Oh yeah, the sticker. I love this. Here.
I could go grab the sword.
I love this sticker. It is, we've been trying to get more I guess just cutesy's the wrong word, but personality and character into the stickers, because we did class stickers and then we did weapons and stuff, but characters are cool. And yeah, we got this dude for our tailoring month. And infantry cards. Yes, this is a thing from the Dungeons and Dragons community. Love these this sort of style of stuff. I love to get some of this in a notebook on. So that's a quick little look into things. Here's what Nikki puts together based on everything. We put this up on Patreon to let people know what's up. And there's a quick little look at our Notion. So learn some stuff.
Throw the shield up on screen there.
Yes.
I'll just show.
How do I do this?
Well,
that's the sword, not the shield.
Yeah, so I'm saying that's what the shield looks like. And this is This is the sword from the month before. It looks very much like it. Is that ever going to be in focus?
That is not going to be in focus for them, I think.
Cool, we have autofocus off. I see. Seems cool. Profoundly unhelpful, but...
could I refocus that?
That's fine. It's fine.
Anyway, look, there's us shilling Patreon, but at the same time, showing you a little bit of Notion. And in terms of Notion, like, what I like is, don't
go to my notes.
Like, for this, like, we can leave comments on stuff, and like there's a full comment flow for giving like feedback and iterations and stuff, which is really, it's really sort of good fun stuff. Somebody said they like Jess's version more. I'm assuming you mean for this. So sort of like this is a thumbnail. This sort of thing, when you actually would get this. So if you're looking at that version and it's really small, that's why we call them thumbnails. They're way faster, way smaller. So if we actually print that, there's obviously not enough detail, and that's why you do need to advance them. Now, there could be a bit of a stylistic shift because that is very much like quick, just personal sort of art, getting that out quickly. What we've been trying to do style-wise is move to like a little bit more of a watercolor vibe for this year. So. Yeah, that's what's going on there. Like I said, the dagger pin will be big, the shield small. I think so this sword is, I believe this is 3.5, and then the shield is like just a little bit shorter.
Yeah, something like that.
If we've done our job right, they will go together.
Yes.
If we've done our job wrong, then it'll still be two awesome pins. So there you go. There's some cool stuff in Notion. We can make all of these tasks. We can change the status, set dates. All pretty fun. As much as I would love to show you the rest of our Notion build, humongous spoilers for many things.
Yes, I think
cannot do that yet.
I think people may have already seen maybe at least nothing major, but at least one, maybe two projects on my sidebar at the start.
Oh, nice!
Because I favorite the homepage. So I know I definitely saw War 3 there for sure.
Warcraft 3. We've talked about Warcraft 3
we've talked about it
for people. So, there you go. Nate Knight says, "Is your game ETA?" So you want to know what the ETA for the game is. Okay, so it's just the sort of thing where I do have an answer. I cannot give it to you though, and it's the sort of thing where it would be irresponsible of me to do so because I do not want to set expectations that may not be met. Now, I only may not be met because we cancel or move to another project. No, so there's 2 game projects. One of them is sort of not okay. I mean, like legitimately on hiatus because it's the thing we're going to develop after the one that we're releasing. The game that we're going to be releasing needs about it's roughly 12 months. Could extend to 14 months of development time. And that's a game where all the pre-production is done. We have like our character emotes and all of that stuff is out and done. So look, if you want a real big, we've already talked about that enough. Like if you want your big, not literally Antarctica, but Antarctic adventure, if you read the story of Shackleton Expedition or the Scott Expedition, our goal is to make you completely immersed in that and in the leadership challenges and all of that stuff. So it's going to be really, really, really cool if you like a game that is really focused on giving you a vibe, giving you an experience, lots of characters. If you'd like sort of more traditional, there's cool words, great script, really nice, nice visuals, nice art, music that really just puts you there. That's what we really want to do. And it's the sort of thing where that is 100% what we want to do. So, we're going to make sacrifices on some things so that we can double down on what we really think the essence of this game is. But it's just the sort of thing where I can't even tell you why I can't properly talk about it yet because, there's just conversations going on, and you can't really do that in a reasonable reasonable manner. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on there.
Absolutely.
I don't really think there's a terrible amount.
I think it might be time to wrap up. It's been just about 2.5 hours now.
Say, Phage lives. Thank you for the super chat. Glad you enjoyed visiting the stream. We really do hope to put more on for you in the future. Absolutely. Hopefully weekly, hopefully super fun. Somebody did ask, Josh Keller, has it happened yet? Yes, it has. Yep. This is, I believe, using DVR, so stay in the current watch page of YouTube that you're on, zoom your way back, and you'll be able to watch the whole thing.
Yep.
So, should be...
Q&A started about 5 minutes after we went live, so if you zip back to about 5 minutes or so, you'll see. You can see the whole thing and our commentary where it was warranted. It always wasn't, or it wasn't always, but it was there.
Okay, that's it for us. Have a great evening, everybody. I think, are going to go have a conversation about the next stage of our content looks like, because there is probably stuff to talk about, especially after that interview that I did. Because
that'll be huge.
Steve is a man that knows when it's time to drop that hot little tease.
Very much.
And get us thinking. So there's going to be some really cool lore. I'll say that much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.
Yep. See you later.